downriver. That's the biggest part, is getting your feet downriver. And if you have to flow, you go with the flow of the river. Look out ahead of you, look for any ways to escape, any access out, any tree branches hanging over. Yell for help and stay calm. That's the #1 thing, is stay calm. But the biggest part is understand that what's important is being safe.
The more water is in the river, the more risk there is, the more hazard there is for somebody that's swimming. The harder it's going to be to move around, the more easily you could get knocked over, slip and fall into the river, and generally speaking, the colder the water is going to be as well.
Whether you live in our oak woodlands or alpine forests, if you're a resident of Nevada County, then wildfire is on your mind. From community planning to defensible space and green waste collection. All efforts make a difference. We are all in this together. Learn more about wildfire preparedness at readynevadacounty.org.
So one of the major threats that we face here in Nevada County is wildfire. And so while you're down visiting the Yuba River, consider the fire threat. Know that on a red flag day especially, a fast-moving wildfire can get out of control. Even a poorly disposed of cigarette could create a fire that pushes all the way down the canyon and into Grass Valley, Nevada City. So this summer we're encouraging folks to just be safe when they're out there. Please don't have barbecues or campfires. Be careful when you're disposing of cigarettes and other products like that that could start a fire. So when you're down here, pay attention to your surroundings. Know that while you're down here, your cell phone may not work. We do have call boxes for you to call out if there's a fire.
Should a fire occur in the canyon, you need to be moving quickly away from it, and don't wait for us to fly over, don't wait for engine companies. If you see it, get away from it, move up the canyon, move out of the way of it, because it's going to be congested at the trailhead trying to get out.
So have a plan to get yourself and your family out safely, and know that evacuations may take longer on those hot summer days if there's a fire in the River Canyon. Think about things like evacuation. How am I going to get out if a fire were to kick off? Because of the orientation of the fuels, weather, and topography, it's important that you do your part to prevent wildfires in the Yuba River Canyon.
What people should not bring to the river is alcohol, a barbecue, anything that has an open flame, any type of glass containers. That glass container that you're carrying can very easily shatter on the rocks, and it becomes a hazard for not only you, but other people at the river.
If you're coming to the river, that's wonderful, enjoy it. It's an incredibly magical place, but take all of the trash that you brought with you, everything that you brought, bring that back out with you. Odds are you're gonna see some bottles or a can or something like that. Take that with you, and please, please, please pick up after your pets. In addition to kind of picking up trash because of aesthetic reasons, we're also really worried about trash, the plastics and things like that, and also the dog waste for the health of the environment. Because if you don't, it's just gonna end up in the river, and it's bad for human health. It's bad for the health of the environment as well.
Nevada County has launched a new opt-in emergency alert system, Nevada County Alerts. Nevada County Alerts delivers critical information during emergencies. There have been no changes to evacuation zones. You can register by visiting readynevadacounty.org/emergency alerts. If you need assistance, contact 211 Connecting Point. You can sign up to receive alerts for up to 5 locations, including your home, workplace, child's school, or the address of a loved one. Sign up for Nevada County Alerts today. Be ready, Nevada County. We're all in this together.
In Nevada County, defensible space is a year-round effort. From winter storm recovery to preparing for wildfire season, resilience takes a united community. Create defensible space around your home, property, or business to give first responders a chance to protect what matters most. We are all in this together. Learn more at readynevadacounty.org/defensible space.
El Condado de Nevada ha lanzado un nuevo sistema voluntario de alertas de emergencia, Nevada County Alerts. Nevada County Alerts envía información crítica durante emergencias. No se han realizado cambios en las zonas de evacuación. Puede registrarse visitando readynevadacounty.org/emergency alerts. Si necesita ayuda, comuníquese.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the day's session of the Planning Commission. Let's go ahead and formally start this meeting with a salute to the flag. Commissioner Garst, would you lead us? Thank you. Let's do roll call.
Commissioner French?
Present.
Commissioner Foley?
Present.
Commissioner McAteer?
Present.
Commissioner Garst?
Present.
And Chair Millman?
Present.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, do we have any corrections at all to the agenda?
No corrections, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so at this point, we are going to open up public comment for anything that is not on today's agenda. So if anybody has thoughts about something else going on that they'd like to talk about, you get 3 minutes and go ahead and approach the microphone. Okay, seeing nobody, we are going to close that part of the meeting. And it looks like we don't have any commission business or consent items today. That's correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Well, moving right on then to the popular item, let's move on to today's public hearing. So I'm going to turn this over to county staff.
Hello, Planning Commissioners and members of the public. My name is David Nicholas. I'm a senior planner here in Nevada County. This project before you today is the Mountain F Enterprises Zoning Map Amendment and Development Permit. This proposed project is for a development permit for a wood grinding facility and vehicle storage yard on a property on Brunswick Road. The project will take forest-sourced wood waste from Mountain F Enterprises hazard tree removal operations and other vegetation clearance operations and bring it onto the site. Well, it will be potentially ground up, processed, and sent to biomass energy facilities for electrical generation or sent to wood product manufacturing plants. The project anticipates processing up to 200 tons of wood products per day, but that's more of a ceiling for the project. Any logs large enough where they have some market value would be sent over to lumber mills, and Mountain F Enterprises can provide more information about that. The site activities will be concentrated on an existing 7-acre asphalt pad. There's no further disturbance proposed other than a small right-hand taper that's proposed to be constructed on Brunswick Road. Within that 7-acre pad, 1.8 acres would be dedicated to the chipping and grinding operation. The chipping and grinding operation would be enclosed by a fence. It would include vegetative debris storage, a truck scale, a 100 square foot trailer, and the horizontal grinder. The asphalt pad would also include parking for up to 132 employees, 2 200 square foot office trailers, shipping containers for tool and equipment storage, and also a screened disposal dumpster. The southern portion of the asphalt pad is also proposed to have a 25,000 square foot outdoor storage area. This is where the commercial vehicles would be kept. These would be things such as forestry bucket trucks, chipper trucks, grapple trucks, semi-trucks, and front-end loaders and excavators. The northern portion of the pad that has a bit more screening is also proposed as a 24,000 square foot maintenance and storage area. The maintenance would involve typical routine service, inspections, and minor repairs, but any larger repairs would be done off-site at a dedicated shop. On the screen is the site plans showing the project I just described. To the right is a zoomed out view of it, and to the left is a more zoomed in detailed view. We can see in the tan shading, that indicates the wood chipping and grinding area. The green is the proposed truck scale. That little yellow square in the tan shading is the trailer. There's 2 light towers proposed. Those are indicated by the triangle with a plus at each of the corners of that wood chipping and grinding area. That would be proposed to operate only from 7 to 5:30. I'll discuss more about light impacts from that later in the presentation. There's also the 2 vehicle maintenance areas and storage areas. Those are indicated in the pink areas. All of the shipping containers are indicated by the orange squares. The parking runs parallel to Brunswick Road. And then the offices, they're by the entrance by the southern portion of the property indicated by yellow. Now we're moving on to existing conditions and surrounding land uses. The project is currently operating without a development permit. As you can see in the photos I've shown, this photo right here is taken on the Brunswick parcel. It's looking to where the proposed chipping and grinding operation would be. Currently, the chipping and grinding operation mostly occurs on the East Bennett site. So right now it's only being used for employee parking and vehicle storage. The property has a general plan designation of industrial and a zoning designation of M1SP, which is light industrial with site performance standards. I'll talk more about those designations later in the presentation. And as I previously mentioned, the site's currently developed with a large asphalt pad that was associated with the past mining and timber operations. The asphalt pad is surrounded by mixed conifer forests that is heavily loaded with understory vegetation and dead trees. On the screen now shows the project and the surrounding areas in addition to their zoning. The project parcels are in the center, indicated by gray with the black cross hatching. We can see that to the north there's more industrial parcels. That's the former Brunswick mine that's owned by Rise Gold currently. To the east is the Some Gold subdivision. To the south is the Brunswick Manor subdivision. Both those have the residential agricultural zoning. On that southwestern corner is Cedar Ridge 1 subdivision. It has R1 zoning indicated by that slightly darker brown. And then to the west is the RA3 planned development, which is currently an undeveloped parcel. During the review of this project, the potential noise impacts were analyzed by a noise consultant. The noise consultant is here and is available to answer any specific questions, but I can provide a summary of the results of that noise analysis. The wood grinder, the loading and supporting of the logs and the unloading, and the project site circulation are considered to be the primary noise sources for the project. We can see the noise model results that show the daily average decibel level on the photo to the right. We can see that a lot of the noise really originates from that chipping and grinding operation and radiates outward, but the sound does reduce, where by the time it reaches any of the surrounding parcels, it is in alignment with the Nevada County noise standards. So the project is predicted to expose those nearby residences to noise levels of up to 54 dBA during the daytime hours. This would be in compliance with the Nevada County daytime noise standards of 60 dBA. The Saxelby noise analysis also looked at the impacts to evening and nighttime noise levels. This project is modeled to generate up to 37 decibels during evening and nighttime hours, which would be in compliance with the evening noise standards of 50 decibels, and the night, my mistake, would be in alignment with the evening noise level of 55 decibels and the nighttime noise level standard of 50 decibels. During the public comment period for the environmental document, we received a lot of public comments regarding noise. So this presentation, this portion of the presentation addresses some of those concerns and comments. Operational noise mitigation was not required because, as shown in that noise study, the project is projected to align with those county noise standards. This analysis evaluated all anticipated noise from the proposed Brunswick project, and it was compared against a no project baseline. And although the wood chipper operates on the East Bennett site, it was temporarily brought onto the Brunswick site for the purpose of that noise analysis. So there's some real world noise measurements here. There's some concerns about previous site uses and previous complaints regarding uses of the sites, but those don't invalidate the project's specific findings of that noise study. The noise study also specifically accounted for the truck backup alarms, which was a question we had received. Through the review of the project, we also reviewed a traffic study that was prepared by W-Trans. W-Trans is also here to answer more detailed questions about impacts of traffic and their traffic study. The W-Trans study analyzed impacts on transit facilities, vehicle miles traveled, safety issues, level of service, and emergency access. Consolidation of the two sites was considered for VMT, but it wasn't used as the basis for the other impact analyses. For example, level of service was evaluated using all project generated traffic compared to a no project baseline. The VMT analysis considers the consolidated sites because it looks at how much driving Mountain F Enterprises is doing across the broader region. Because the East Bennett site would close and the existing operations would relocate to the Brunswick Road site, W-Trans concluded that the project would not increase the overall amount of driving that Mountain F Enterprises does in the region. The project traffic study also determined that project traffic would not cause any intersection to operate deficiently overall, so the level of service would not be reduced to levels that wouldn't be allowable by the Nevada County circulation element of the general plan. The westbound left turn lane at Brunswick Road and Idaho Maryland Road would worsen, but the overall intersection would continue to operate acceptably at level of service A. W-Trans also found adequate driveway site distance and access for emergency vehicles and concluded that the project traffic would not impede emergency responders. Nevada County Department of Public Works engineers reviewed and agreed with the study's conclusion and is available to answer any questions. We're moving on to wildfire now. Wildfire impacts were also analyzed. The project was routed to the Nevada County Consolidated Fire Protection District and the Nevada County Office of the Fire Marshal. Those departments provided input and provided conditions to reduce the risk of wildfire. Both fire departments are requiring that the biomass piles meet the requirements set forth in the California Fire Code. These requirements are things such as limitations on the pile size, separation between the piles, ensuring there's access around the piles for vehicles, emergency access vehicles to get to the piles, and also temperature monitoring of the piles. There's also proposed conditions of approval for fire extinguishers to be located at all areas where flammable liquids are stored. And finally, a 10,000-gallon water storage tank is also required for fire suppression in the event of an emergency. We also reviewed air quality impacts. The way air quality impacts are determined is that we look at all of the emissions that the different equipment would produce. We put into an emission modeling software, and then we compare the results of that to the Northern Sierra Air Quality Management District's thresholds of significance. The result of that analysis showed that the emissions associated with the construction of the project are substantially below those adopted pollution thresholds of significance, just because there isn't much construction required. The operation of the project is modeled to emit a maximum of 28 pounds of NOx per day, which exceeds the most stringent threshold of significance of 24 pounds per day and falls within the level B thresholds. However, the Northern Sierra adopted thresholds of significance state that one pollutant within the level B thresholds is not considered significant. All other pollutants do not exceed the most stringent threshold of significance. The project was routed to Northern Sierra Air Quality Management District for review. Northern Sierra supports the project, but due to the minor disturbances associated with the right-hand turn taper and the tree planting for screening, dust control mitigations are required as shown in mitigation measure 3A. This slide is to address some of the comments we had received for the air quality section of the initial study. A health risk assessment was not required because the project isn't significant compared to the Northern Sierra Air Quality Management District thresholds, and the district didn't require an analysis like that. And a health risk assessment isn't typically required for an initial study in these circumstances. Northern Sierra also reviewed the project's NOx emissions and determined it wouldn't conflict with the state implementation plan for ozone attainment. NOx is a precursor for ozone. It reacts with VOCs in the presence of sunlight. However, a lot of the reason for non-attainment in Nevada County is because of overwhelming transport from the Sacramento metropolitan area. That's recognized by the California Resources Board. And so the result of that is there isn't a state implementation plan policy that requires a no net increase. So the NOx doesn't conflict with the state implementation plan. Northern Sierra is here, and they can provide any information if there's any specific questions. There's also concern about removing the 1994 SP overlay and if there'd be any air quality impacts associated with removing that SP overlay. That SP overlay doesn't have any specific project mitigation measures that wouldn't be required today in 2026. Now we're moving on to hazardous material history. Due to the site's historical background of being associated with storing mine tailings and also through various lumber mills from 1950 to 1951, it's listed as a Cortese list site due to those chemical impacts. However, the DTSC, the California Department of Toxic Substance Control, and the Regional Water Quality Control Board enacted a cleanup effort on this project in the early 90s. The case was closed in 2006. It resulted in a restriction on shallow groundwater use. As a result, the Mountain F Enterprises project would not use the groundwater and would use NID groundwater, or NID supplied water. NID reviewed this project. They have conditions of approval for it, and they also included their agreement to allow Mountain F Enterprises to use that NID supplied water. The project also includes a Phase 1 environmental report that discusses the historical underground fuel tanks and arsenic-containing mine waste that's underneath the asphalt pad. We worked with the Nevada County Department of Environmental Health regarding these issues. The underground fuel tank has been referred to Nevada County Environmental Health for separate regulatory follow-up. Environmental Health reviewed the project and concurred with the applicant that the arsenic remediation could be deferred because the activities would not disturb any new soil and would be completely on the existing asphalt pad. Environmental Health is here, and they can provide any more information about the DTSC process or any other questions you guys may have. As part of the review process, aesthetics were reviewed as well. A photometric study was provided that analyzed the lighting. This was to ensure there's not any light pollution or off-site glare that's created. The orientation and the conditions of approval would ensure that the lights would be shielded and directed downward and wouldn't create any light pollution or off-site light spill. The project also takes advantage of the existing vegetation that's there that provides screening. The vehicle storage areas are located behind the more dense vegetation to provide some screening. However, this is proposed to be supplemented with some additional tree planting and some minor landscaping in the conditions of approval. The project proposes the small office trailers, and the office trailers comply with the design guidelines as much as feasible for an office trailer of that nature. The scope of the project also includes a proposed zoning map amendment. The site is currently zoned M1 SP. M1 is the county's light industrial zoning district. The SP is associated with an ordinance, 1853, that was adopted in 1994 for the Nevada County Business and Industrial Center. The Business and Industrial Center was designed to be a comprehensive master planned industrial park. To the north, it would have corporate offices. In the more central portion of the project, it was planned to have light industrial manufacturing. And to the most southern part of the property, towards where Mountain F is proposing their project, that's where the heaviest industry would occur. Potential uses in that area would be vehicle dismantling, recycling centers, lumber mills, and things of that nature. This larger multi-parcel industrial center was never developed as envisioned, and therefore the Mountain F Enterprises project does not align with that comprehensive master plan for an entire industrial park, because any future development on those parcels are unlikely to exactly align with the entire master planned project. That's why it's proposed to remove the SP overlay to that base zoning district, just to clean that up a little bit. The underlying M1 zoning district would still be consistent with the general land plan designation after removal of that SP overlay. As part of the project review, there is also evaluation for consistency with the Nevada County General Plan. This project, as I'd mentioned, is proposed with an industrial general plan designation. The industrial general plan designation is intended for areas which goods are produced, distributed, and warehoused, along with supporting businesses and service uses. Because this project is providing the service of clearing vegetation, clearing along power lines, and also taking that cleared vegetation and creating the product of wood chips. It's consistent with the uses intended for an industrial general plan designation. The project was also evaluated for consistency with the Nevada County Zoning Code. The zoning code is a way to implement those programs and policies of the general plan. Pursuant to the industrial section of the Nevada County Code, uses such as commercial activities that require extensive storage areas, such as the contractor's storage yard that's proposed, would be allowed in the industrial land use zoning with the issuance of a development permit. The industrial zoning designation also allows for processing of a wide variety of goods, which could include vegetative debris. And furthermore, the M1 zoning district also specifically allows for biomass fuel production. The industrial zoning district also has different development standards. These things include impervious surface limitations, which is essentially lot coverage. The maximum allowed impervious surface in industrial zoning is 85%. This project only has 11% lot coverage, so it's consistent with those impervious surface standards. In an industrial district, the maximum height for a structure is 45 feet. Due to this project only proposing small office trailers, that 45-foot height limit is not exceeded. The zoning code also requires that all the project parcels have 150 feet of road frontage. These parcels are already existing and all have 150 feet of road frontage at least. The project is consistent with all the setbacks required by the industrial zoning district. However, there is a fence that's 6 feet tall that encroaches into the front yard setback. So therefore, a condition of approval is proposed to reduce that fence in height to comply with the zoning district. As previously discussed in this presentation, the project is consistent with those other zoning standards in regard to noise, lighting, natural resource avoidance, and signage. Since the release of the staff report for the Mountain F Enterprises project, county staff have received comment letters from members of the public. These were included in the memorandum that was provided to the Planning Commission. The comments primarily discuss concerns on traffic, air quality, wildfire, and noise. These issues have been evaluated and are discussed in the initial study and mitigated negative declaration, and also the staff report. However, some additional clarification was included in the staff memo that was provided, and it was also incorporated into the relevant sections of this presentation. However, some of the following slides do have some additional clarification. The Nevada County zoning ordinance doesn't require that grid power provide electricity to all structures. The energy use required by the two 200 square foot office trailers would not be considered to be significant just because of the small size of those trailers. However, the generator use was evaluated for compliance with noise standards and also air quality standards, and it was found to not result in a significant impact. An EIR is not required because the mitigated negative declaration determined that all potential impacts would be reduced to less than significant levels. An EIR would rely on the same technical studies, and it's not expected that an EIR would reach a different conclusion. The project is zoned for light industrial use and has a history of light industrial uses. The determination of the Rise Gold project does not prohibit any possible industrial uses on the site into the future. As a result of reviewing some of the public comments, it is proposed that an additional condition of approval be added for clarification. The projects the county processes are required to align with what they propose in their application material, but just for clarification, it's proposed to state that the daily duration of equipment operation shall not exceed the hours in the operational schedule proposed in the project application material. As long as the equipment operation aligns with what was proposed and what was analyzed, it would be less than significant. So that's why this condition is proposed, to clarify that. Additional conditions were also received from the Agricultural Commissioner that are proposed to limit the potential spread of invasive insects, plant pathogens, noxious weeds, and other regulated pests. These conditions are included in the memo and include requirements for inspections, restrictions on accepting quarantine material, and also the reporting of invasive pests and good site maintenance. The Nevada County Planning Department conducted an initial study and a mitigated negative declaration for this project. This initial study was made available for public review for the period of 30 days spanning from July 24th, 2026 to August 24th, 2026. Based on the technical information submitted with the application, review of pertinent policy and regulatory documents, and consultation with other local, state, and federal agencies, all potential impacts that were identified have been mitigated to levels of less than significant. Therefore, the mitigated negative declaration is the appropriate environmental document for the project. Therefore, county staff recommendations are as follows. The recommended environmental action is that after review and consideration, the Planning Commission recommend the Board of Supervisors adopt the proposed mitigated negative declaration. The recommended project action is that after reviewing and considering the proposed zoning map amendment, the Planning Commission recommend the Board of Supervisors approve the zoning map amendment. And the second recommended project action is that after reviewing and considering the proposed project, the Planning Commission recommend the Board of Supervisors approve the development permit. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for the time, and I'm available for all questions.
Thank you very much. Let's start with Commissioner French for questions.
I think I'll hear from some of the other folks that are speaking.
Okay. Commissioner Foley, questions for staff?
I am interested to hear the applicant's presentation, but I guess one question that I do have for staff is the site performance overlay. You said, is there an example of a type of project that could be built under that overlay that's in existence right now?
Commissioner Foley, the site performance overlay is attached to a comprehensive master plan that is developed specifically by a developer or an applicant for that project specifically. So it outlines the exact square footage, location of buildings, landscaping plans, lighting, uses for that business that intended to develop the site. So anything that were to come in and try to utilize that master plan would have to be exactly consistent or the same of what the vision of that developer in 1994 was. To be clear, this isn't a comprehensive master plan or a county-initiated plan that was approved for the site. This was a project proposal that went through the process, had a master plan approved with the project, and never developed. But because the zoning took place as part of the approval, it has remained in place until now because nothing has developed on the site since that approval.
So for any future business or development that could potentially develop that site, this overlay would need to be removed for that business to proceed?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner McAteer?
Yes. So, David, what we have is a business entity, that's currently under violation because they don't have a permit for what they're currently doing on the Centennial site. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner McAteer, that is correct. They don't have a permit for either this site, the Brunswick site, or the East Bennett site, and so this process is to bring them into compliance.
Have they been in process relative to I call it Centennial, that's how I sort of entered to see the operation, is the Bennett site, are they doing something to try to come into compliance?
They are, Commissioner. I have a slide that I can bring up about the East Bennett site. Mountain F Enterprises doesn't own the East Bennett site, though. They're actually leasing it. So after they purchased the Brunswick site in the end of 2024, they shortly after began the process for the development permit. The East Bennett site, on the other hand, has been going on for a longer time. They're currently involved with the California Department of Toxic Substance Control, and so they're trying to remediate some of the issues on the East Bennett site.
But they don't own that property, so who's doing the remediation? The owner?
The entity that owns the East Bennett site is the East Bennett Industrial Park LLC. So they're the owner who's working with GTSC, while on East Bennett, Mountain F Enterprises is leasing it from East Bennett Industrial Park.
Okay. So that's not in compliance, and then they started using the property they own currently without a permit, correct?
Yes, Commissioner, that's correct.
So what are the consequences for an entity that has double a violation? Brian?
So the East Bennett site, do we have a code case? Yeah, there's a code complaint on the East Bennett Street site. There has not been a code case opened or a complaint received on the Brunswick site. So there are no formal complaints on the Brunswick site. For the East Bennett site, the owner was notified of the need for permits, and as long as the owner had applied for the appropriate permits through the appropriate departments, planning department, they are stayed any type of fines while they work their way through the application and permitting process. That site does, as David mentioned, have some DTSC issues that they're working through environmental health in the state, so that does take some time. That project's probably been in process for maybe 6 years, so it's been a while. But I don't believe that they've been fined, or if they have, it's only been like a level 1 citation.
And as of the Brunswick site, so this Mountain Enterprises came in, started parking their cars, their employees started parking their cars, and there's no consequences because there's been no formal complaint?
That's correct. We operate on a complaint basis. We haven't gotten a formal complaint, so no citations have been issued.
I don't know. We've not had a instance here of bringing a project forward that has code compliance issues, actually, in the 4 years I've been on here.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, generally the path to compliance is to apply for the appropriate permits and go through the process.
Okay. So I know we're going to hear from you, but I have a couple questions, if you don't mind. And I forgot your name. I'm sorry. We've been across the aisle many a time.
Thank you, Commissioner McAteer. My name is Theodore Goodman with Millennium Planning and Engineering. I'm a senior planner representing Mountain F here.
Great. So my question is, I feel like this is deja vu here again. These poor people, I was here with them on the gold mine, and now we're here on this issue. So you knew that this issue would come up and the neighbors would complain about noise and everything else. So my sort of question is, why not stay at the current site instead of having a battle with the neighborhood?
I'm sorry, folks. We're going to ask you to withhold applause and other, you know what I mean. Don't do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioners. Yeah, I believe staff touched on this question briefly by saying that they currently do not own the Bennett Street site. They're leasing it. And my understanding is that the responsibilities of the code compliance issues on that site are for the owner of the Bennett Street site. This location has already been disturbed with the existing parking area. They're not proposing any major construction, so it seemed like a site that was an appropriate fit for this kind of activity where there's no permanent structures and only the...
But I'm sure you turned to your client and said, you know, these people have been through the Rise Gold Mine situation, and just be prepared that, that their hackles will probably be up. Is that a fair statement that you had?
We had been brought onto the project after this had been applied for, but our understanding is that, well, I can probably let Mountain F speak to this if you'd like.
I'm Sharon Simpson. I'm with Tri-Hydro representing Mountain Enterprises.
So, sorry, tell me what Tri-Hydro is that in relation.
I'm a consulting firm
that Thank you.
assists Mountain Enterprises.
You know what? Hang on just a sec. I think we're sort of wandering out of order. So let's hold and continue any questions that we have for staff through the rest of the commissioners, and then we'll have applicant.
Okay. Fine. I'll wait and hold my questions then. Thank you.
Thanks. I have a question for fire, if Dan Collins is available. I was wondering if you could summarize the California Fire Code requirements for wood chip storage and monitoring.
That's a very large question. They are supposed to be spaced out under a certain amount of cubic storage per ton, and those are validated by the spacing and laid out in between. And that's why we have required that 10,000-gallon water tank to be stored there. There is a fire hydrant across the street, but usually with these chip piles or any kind of piles that we're going to have with the green vegetation will be a small fire behavior. And so we're trying to keep the main arteries open for in case we had to evacuate the area and things, we're not dragging hose across the main county arterial road. So that's why we're requiring the fire tank on the storage, on the facility within 1,000 feet of those piles in the vehicle storage. Does that answer any questions on that?
Kind of. Is there any monitoring requirements for the heat in these piles? Because I know that they are tend to be dangerous.
I wouldn't say dangerous, but the only time we see problems with them is wet chip piles. They burn real tightly packed, and we usually don't see that when they're coming out of chippers or anything like that. We see them tightly in mills. Sometimes we'll see them when they come out and very tightly, they're wet, and they get tightly put down, and that's where we see the spontaneous combustion with that friction energy. But we haven't seen too many in Nevada County that I'm aware of that we would call a high-risk area in this area, so no.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
can I follow up with that?
Yes, you bet.
So, there's not a person monitoring, there's no one on the site for, 16 hours a day, correct?
Most of those hours there is, but we don't require a fire watch unless they are video monitored. They do have a system up there to prevent thefts and things like that are monitored cameras that we could tie in to look at those kind of things. But we don't require a fire watch because this just isn't a high risk scenario because they're so isolated. The way they've put the piles out there and regulated, we just don't have that out there. It's a 24-hour fire watch for a human being to be out there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got another question.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm curious is why there wasn't a requirement to just put a new hydrant on the other side of the street. Wouldn't have that made it more straightforward, or is there a...
Great question. That was one of the requirements. It was kind of there was an old system out there from the Bohemia Mill, and the system is out there. The pipes some hydrants are still in place. I went out and checked them with the senior planner, David, and the system's out there. It just deteriorated. It needed to be tested. It would take years. The tank was a more quick action to get them in compliance than the years it was going to take to dig up the pipeline, restall it, have it approved and tested and certified. And so that's why the applicant went with the tank versus redoing that hydro system, because it's a private system. It's not monitored by NID like across the street.
Right. And so with the tanks, this seems to me to be one of the more important conditions of approval. And is there like a regular I mean, how often do you count on somebody keeping the tank full and operational, and then you go out there and it's not?
It's the same thing when we do with the cannabis. When I do my annual inspections with the cannabis, a lot of cannabis farms have to have tanks on site filled, and so they will be checked yearly and made sure that they're in compliance and operable by the fire marshal, which in this case will now be Nevada County Consolidated Fire.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have questions for fire while we've got him standing up here? All right, thank you. Okay, did you have other questions for staff? No? Okay, so I had a couple of questions for staff. Where did it go? Okay, so what's the definition that you put up earlier about light industry, that's the definition of light industry, is the creation of goods and warehousing, et cetera?
Yes, that's correct. I put up two separate definitions when I was talking about the general plan consistency and zoning consistency. So this is a summary of what our general plan is saying should be occurring in the industrial general plan designations.
Would it be fair to say that when you have the industrial zoning and this particular definition, that you're expecting more of an enclosed factory rather than like exterior processing?
Not inherently, Commissioner. A lot of those uses are fairly flexible. The zoning code is meant to be able to have some ability to adapt to different land uses that change over time and not be so tight and rigorous that it only allows a very specific kind of development. And even specifically, the sort of uses outlined in the zoning code are things like equipment contractor storage yards, which are often outside. I would say it's fairly unusual to have that entirely enclosed.
Yeah, agreed. I was thinking more about the chipping. So it seems like this is a permit for a long-term facility, correct?
Yes, Commissioner, that's correct. The development permits run with the land, and they don't expire unless the conditions of approval specifically have an expiration date.
But then all of the build-out is temporary in nature, right?
The way they're developing it is, fairly temporary, but it would still have to be permitted. Those mobile offices would still require building permits, and they would have to be secured to the ground, almost how we would like treat a tiny home on wheels. Because it will have to have a building permit and be fairly permanent because of that foundation anchoring.
Right, but like a tiny home on wheels requires a sewer connection these days, right? If you're going to be long-term in there?
Yes, Commissioner, that is true. That they do require the septic and sewer connections, and because of the groundwater restrictions on the site, there's no specific connection requirements or that are proposed to any groundwater or water. So this site is not as designed as a permanent site, even though it would be permitted that way.
If there weren't groundwater issues, then they would need to put in bathrooms?
I would defer to environmental health, who may be able to answer some questions about some of the requirements for the bathroom and the waters and things like that.
Well, how handy that she's here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Amy Urani Leverton, Environmental Health Director. One of the things that we looked at when it came to perhaps putting in a septic system for a more permanent structure, we didn't want them disrupting any of the soil due to other mitigating factors, perhaps mining, other tailings on the property. So just to stick to the paved area, which was already put in place, the items underneath have been essentially sealed or encapsulated, so they wouldn't be disturbing any other areas of the property that they could use with a conditional permit through us, the use of a portable toilet during their operations, have a contract with a company that services that on a routine basis to make sure there's no, environmental contamination with that, with the hand sink.
So are we imagining like the little single porta potties that you pull on a trailer, or are we imagining more like what they do for temp facilities when the airport is doing an expansion?
It could actually be either. Based on their preference of what they would like. It would just have to be managed and cleaned on a routine basis.
And so then it seems there's also an underground storage tank, and we're leaving that under there for the same reason?
We're leaving that under there for now, correct, to avoid disruption and creating a bigger issue potentially. But
So
we
there-
will address that.
Okay,
Excuse me.
thanks. Pardon, did you finish your sentence?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So there was a photo earlier of the asphalt that looked like the asphalt was broken or kind of more gravel than asphalt. Is that what I saw in that photo? Yeah, so off to the right there, that's portion of the asphalt that we're talking about?
You're talking about where would the portable or where the underground storage tank would
Just
go?
in general, I'm talking about the area that we are saying is completely paved and therefore there's no disruption of the soil beneath it. Is that, in that, and this is probably more of a question for David or somebody that's walked the site, but to the right there, it looks like the asphalt is pretty significantly degraded. Is that what we're seeing in that photo?
When I walked, I'll go to another picture of the site. I mean, the asphalt certainly isn't in the best condition, but it's not predominantly gravel from anywhere that I've seen on that site. And my view of that photo is that some sort of other debris, maybe some debris that may have fallen off of a wood truck or something like that, rather than the asphalt deteriorating so much that it's turned into gravel. Mountain F Enterprises are here. They may be able to kind of speak a little bit more about the condition of the asphalt pad, but I would say that it's the area outside of that kind of dark brownish area seems to be more representative of the condition of the pad.
Okay, so cracked and patched, but not necessarily completely alligatored.
I agree with that, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So really what I've heard is while this might have been subject to being a business park or something else, the reality is that hardly any development can take place on this facility because of what it's covering up without an enormous amount of cash to be able to do this cleanup. Is that a fair assessment?
Thank you, Commissioner. I would say that with my limited knowledge of what is out there, what has been contained underneath the asphalt, it would be our recommendation to the applicant, do not do anything to disrupt that, open it, and create a situation where more mitigation, which is costly, could come into play.
So I'm hearing you say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the reality is that this site has very limited service at this point because of what's underneath that asphalt.
I would say yes, they should stick to where their operations are going to drive and storage to those permitted asphalt formations.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
This is for county staff, sorry. We got a letter from a gentleman who had some history, I guess, with this type of operation, and he suggested using more electric grinding of the material to minimize diesel fuel pollution. Was that ever considered?
I think that'd be a business operational decision by the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
so are there other locations in the county where we have industrial backed up to residential or basically surrounded by residential?
The Loma Rica Airport area is all industrial, and the Wawona Madrona neighborhood surrounds that on the east and the south side, and then there's some residential ag to the north of that. So the industrial sites on LeBar Meadows have various residential ag properties that abut immediately up to M1 zoning in that area. So at some point, almost, that you're going to need to make a transition to another zone district, and we don't have a different zone district that is commonly used in between residential and industrial. It tends to just end industrial and then go into some level of residential or ag use.
In this particular site, was this site, I guess it was a mine and et cetera from a long time ago, was it kind of out in the middle of nowhere and then the residential has basically started to surround it? Is that how the history of where we're at?
Well, I think we might have some more information on it. From my understanding, the Bohemia Mill was operated up until 1991. So whatever neighborhood was around up until 1991 experienced this site operating at some capacity.
Right, but the neighborhood grew to the industrial.
I mean, the Cedar Ridge subdivisions are much older than 1991.
Right, but are they older than whenever the mill started or whenever the gold mining started on that site?
They were in the 1970s, I believe, 1977, 78, and the lumber mill was operating from the 50s to the 90s.
Yeah, so the mills and the mines were there first before the subdivisions. Okay, thanks. I think that's good for right now. Let's hear from the applicant.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission and members of the public. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. My name is Theodore Goodman, Senior Planner with Millennium Planning and Engineering, representing this project on behalf of Mountain F Enterprises. The owners and operators of Mountain F are here today. If you have any questions for them about their business, staff is pulling up our presentation here shortly. Thank you, David. Beginning this project, I don't want to reiterate too much of what staff had to say. I appreciate their very thorough presentation. I think we've talked about the technical elements quite a bit. We'll recap some of those near the end of this presentation, but I'd like to just start talking about what Mountain F Enterprises really does. Next slide, please. Thank you. First and foremost, Mountain F is a company that handles fire management and vegetation management. Their services include forest maintenance, vegetation management, hazardous fuels reductions, and power line clearing. These are all things that make for a safer Nevada County. They're able to do it at a scale where I'm sure many are aware, their power line clearing is a substantial part of their work, and that helps prevent or mitigate for wildfires. In addition to that, the chipping and grinding element is what's proposed with this project site specifically, which would include up to 200 tons of green waste processed per day. And to echo staff's comments, that's a ceiling. It may not necessarily be 200s a day. It may not even be running every day. Additionally, I wanted to share some thoughts that we had received from a local professional forester on a project of this nature. They looked at it thoroughly, and they had been very supportive of the nature of chipping and grinding on this site, stating in the letter that they had provided, which I believe may have been included in the staff memorandum, biomass processing facilities are essential to achieving fuel reduction and forest resilient goals at a meaningful scale. A successful facility can demonstrate that forest residues and utility-generated woody debris are not merely waste products, but potentially valuable raw materials. And that goes to the second bullet on this slide, which is that it has the capacity to truly and sincerely support renewable energy projects, whether that's through biomass energy or the use of wood product manufacturers. Furthermore, the forester had said that without reasonably located processing facilities, this material must be piled and burned, chipped and scattered, or transported long distances, or even just left on site. All options that can increase costs, limit the amount of acreage treated, and reduce the overall effectiveness of fuel reduction programs. Projects like these and businesses like these are absolutely in the interest of the greater public safety of Nevada County. Next slide, please. To briefly recap the site, once again, staff gave a very thorough presentation. This is the project location with a zoomed in aerial of the overall area. I think you should be able to see that while the overall property is 66 acres, the area of this project is 7.5 acres approximately. And that really just encompasses the existing paved area, which per the discussion with environmental health is not intended to be disturbed. Additionally, as staff had discussed, this is in an existing industrial zone. Next slide, please. A bit about the relocation, just to give some context to how far they're really traveling. This is not, we're not perceiving this as being a significant change to the existing traffic flow of the area. As you can see on this slide here, the old location, being at East Bennett, connects to that four-way intersection at Brunswick Road. And that is where, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, folks from Mountain, but that's where the majority of the traffic goes and would have gone, is through that corridor there. By moving over to the Brunswick site, we're actually going in front of less residential parcels, crossing past less driveways and getting onto an arterial road faster and more efficiently. Additionally, just to reiterate, that green portion there is just a fraction of the overall site area, and once again, is not being disturbed. So this transition in location is only about 1.2 miles, not a terribly substantial change in the character as that area is being used. Next slide, please. To briefly discuss the project design, staff also was able to discuss this very thoroughly. That tan area at the top is the wood chipping and grinding area, and then those reddish hatches there are for the vehicle maintenance and parking, and the employee parking is located along the parallel to Brunswick Road. Additionally, there's 2 office trailers proposed that are for administrative capacities. And lastly, the encroachment improvements. There's minor encroachment improvements to ensure that vehicle traffic can get off of the road and use that existing intersection more efficiently. Next slide, please. Talking about the site history, I'm glad that the commissioners were able to ask questions of staff, and if some of our numbers here are not consistent with the staff's dates, please correct us. But to put it simply, this project site has been used for industrial uses for well over 100 years, whether it was mines or followed by the mills, or in more recent events, the use of green waste programs hosted by Nevada County and those that could support them. I think it's important to note that the nature of a use like this is awfully similar to how the project site has been used, which is a place, as you can see in this photo from the Union, a place where there's large equipment in the background, chipping and processing green waste that's brought to this site, a lot of trucks coming in to have all of this green waste processed properly, is not an unheard of use to have happen here. In this case, I think it would be a more regular application of these proper forest management practices. Next slide, please. To briefly touch on the zoning, I think staff described it really well. It is industrial zone. It's not proposed to change it from any other zone, from commercial or residential to industrial. That's what the site's been historically used for. And I appreciate staff's commentary on the nature of the site performance district. In reading through that 1994 site performance district ordinance, it seemed like there was a much more intensive development planned here, where this current proposal does not propose any permanent structures. These are all things that are inherently temporary, while the use is intended to be permanent. There's no additional site disturbance. Next slide. And with that, I'd like to jump into some of the commentary around the technical analyses that went into a project. Going through CEQA and the nature of a development permit requires rigorous review to ensure that we're not creating any significant impact on the environment. And I'd like to begin with noise by inviting the acoustics engineer to speak about the context of their study.
Good afternoon. Thank you, commissioners. My name is Rex Crane. I work for Saxelby Acoustics. I was the project acoustic engineer for this noise study. Our job here is to determine whether the project complies with the Nevada County General Plan, zoning code, and whether it creates a significant impact under CEQA by creating increases above the existing noise environment, which are unacceptable. We began our noise study by conducting noise measurements on the project site with most of the equipment in operation. Mountain Enterprises is predicting or is planning to utilize additional equipment, extra loaders, things like that. Where we weren't able to measure equipment, we pulled noise level data from federally recognized databases, roadway noise construction model for loaders, equipment like that. We took measurements up close, and then we took measurements off of the project site to ensure that we're adequately representing how noise travels within the community surrounding the area. With all of the equipment off, we took further noise measurements on the project site to get a clean read of the noise environment created by Brunswick Road. And we took noise measurements in the community, again, with all of the equipment not in operation to ensure that we adequately represented what the existing noise environment is at the homes without any sort of operation on site. We take the data that we collected and we input it into a three-dimensional sound modeling software called SoundPlan. It's based on international standards for propagation of sound. It takes everything into account from topography, hills, atmospheric effects, anything that could affect how noise travels in the environment, and it predicts noise levels at the nearby sensitive receptors. Based on what we measured on site and based on the existing ambient in the surrounding community, we determined that the project would comply with Nevada County General Plan standards, the zoning code standards, and it would not create a significant impact as defined by CEQA. I'm available for any questions you might have.
I got one question. Can you let us know during the test what was the amount of equipment? What exactly was running during that test?
We had the grinder in operation. There were 2 or 3 excavators equipped with grapple attachments. There were, I don't know, probably 10 deliveries from heavy trucks on site. So what occurs is the excavators equipped with grapple attachments pull logs, branches, and then load them into the grinder. There were several loaders in operation and some light employee vehicles as well. I think they're predicting to add a couple more loaders. Of course, they're going to increase the amount of truck deliveries as well. We accounted for all of that operating simultaneously in our model.
Does that also include the generator power for the office spaces?
Yes, we included 2.
So basically, this is going to be a completely off-grid site, so any hand tools or power equipment, everything is going to be powered off generator power?
Correct.
And that was accounted for as well?
Yes, they're proposing 2 generators and 2 light towers, which are equipped with generators. So 4 generators total operating simultaneously, in addition to the grinding. When the grinding ceases at 5:30, we modeled the generators and the light towers as continuing to operate. I'm not sure if they will, but that's what we modeled.
Okay, thank you.
Did you complete your presentation, or should we go ahead and ask?
No, our presentation is concluding shortly.
Okay, so yeah, let's open this up to questions for our acoustic engineer here. No, I'm okay. You good? Okay.
No, we're not completed. We just have a few more, but similar. We'll have the traffic engineer come up next.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. I have quite a few questions for you, actually, I think.
Sure.
So what we're shown here, this is the overall noise, or this is the increase from the current ambient noise in the area?
This is the average noise level generated by the project. It doesn't take into account existing noise levels. So this is only what Mountain Enterprises will generate in the worst case hour.
So it's totally plausible that somebody in their backyard has more than 54 decibels, but 54 decibels are due to this project plus whatever? Does sound add like that?
It does add. The only other source we identified in the area is traffic on Brunswick Road. I'm not sure, I don't think we have that's okay. We predicted that the daytime hourly average due to traffic at these locations would be about 52 decibels. The contribution from the Brunswick site would be 54. That would add up. And we assess the increase over what the existing ambient noise level is as part of the CEQA process.
So if it's 52, then you actually add 54, so now what's in their backyard is actually 106?
No, it adds logarithmically.
Okay.
So it would be something more like 56, 57, something like that.
And so, I know without modeling it, but like if they put in these values that you're showing here are modeled as if there's no additional fence or anything for these neighbors, correct?
Correct.
So that person over there who's, those 2 houses that show 54, if you put up a solid wood fence that's 6 foot high, potentially it drops down?
That has the potential to help, yes.
But you don't know that, like how much it would drop down or anything unless it were modeled, correct?
No, I don't know that without modeling it.
Okay, and then the generators, are the generators anticipated to run until 5:30, or do the generators run all night?
So currently, the lights are only used as needed during the winter or emergency conditions. So currently, the light towers that are going to be used on this property would only be when needed. The other 2 generators are powering the scale house, which is used during operations throughout the whole day to take in and out of trucks, as well as the offices. Those would be used, and those are currently being used at the other site.
So the generator would be on all night for the lights?
No, only during operating hours.
Oh, you said as needed. I wasn't sure if they were needed for some reason
During
after hours
operating
for
hours.
security or something.
No, they would be turned off when the facility closes.
So 5:30, 6 o'clock?
Yes.
And there's no lights at nighttime?
No.
Okay.
I have a quick follow-up question. What type of generators are you proposing? Are these propane? Are they diesel?
They're diesel generators.
And what time of day did you do this study, since I gather it was a short period? What
I took
time of-
data over several hours starting around 11 a.m. I think operation ceased around 1:30 p.m. the day that I took measurements.
So you didn't do it during rush hour or anything else? It would be actually off-peak hours?
No, it was not during rush hour, so we got excellent data for what the facility actually produces.
Okay, thank you.
And you said that the backup indicators for the trucks were included in your study?
Yes, that's correct.
So, okay, so it's probably apparent from my earlier questions that I'm not a sound engineer. So, so when you measure decibels, is there any sort of a measurement in terms of like noise annoyance, right? So if something is a certain amount of decibels, one kind of sound versus another kind of sound, I think we register them differently. Is there a way to measure that?
Tonality is usually the metric we use to account for that. That's what you see in the county zoning code. There's typically penalties when the majority of the noise from a project is considered tonal. Our threshold for that is we take measurements of the entire operation. We look at the frequency content and we see, are there 10 decibels extra of high frequency noise in this particular frequency band? That's usually our litmus test for when we apply the tonality correction. For complex projects where there's a lot of different sources, what we can sometimes do, which is not, what we sometimes do is apply the penalty only to that particular source in the model. So we add 5 decibels to the backup indicators. In this scenario, that's not what we did because the maximum noise levels don't actually come from the backup alarms. It's going to be truck braking and it's going to be the actual operation of the grinder and associated equipment like the grapple hook excavators.
And so the grinder, like, it's basically just on, right? And it makes its own being on noise. And
Yes.
then you put whatever material through it and it does that grindy noise, right?
Yes.
And it kind of goes, right?
They're very efficient with how they load it and it's more or less continuous.
So they just keep grinding the whole time. There's always something. Because, you know, when people grind something down the street from you, you think, oh, somebody's doing some chipping. And 3 hours later, you're thinking, oh my gosh, somebody's doing some chipping, right?
Right.
And it stops. And you think, oh, they're done. And then it starts up again. But this is just continuous.
That's how I would describe what I saw when I visited the site.
So the tonality that you were talking about, that's for higher frequency or higher pitch?
It can be high or low.
High or
Anywhere where there's a frequency that is far exceeds all the other frequencies in the spectrum of the noise.
So the material going into the grinder, does that count as one of those?
You could look at that. In our case, we didn't find it to be tonal.
Okay.
Commissioner Millman, if I may, JP from Mountain Enterprise would like to elaborate on the operational nature of the loaders and.
Yeah, I think at this point, anybody, are we good with moving on to the rest? Yeah, let's go with the rest of your presentation, whether it's this or whatever order you planned earlier.
Good
Sorry to
afternoon,
derail you.
JP with Mountain Enterprise. So I think what I'm trying to get at or I'm hearing is to process 200 tons with a grinder, you would grind 4 to 6 hours. They're not running full throttle grinder, what everybody expects. So I just want to clarify that. We separate out all the wood to load on trucks so we don't grind. Grinding costs obviously a lot of money, right? It's a big grinder, it's 800 horsepower. We're not trying to just run a grinder full throttle 7 to 8 hours a day. We'll probably grind half a day. We have a limit on 200 tons. We can't have big piles, as the CAL FIRE stated. We have a monitor that it's a big, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's a big stick with a temperature gauge on it, like a meat thermometer, basically. And we stick stick that into the grind pile. We don't let the grind pile get out of control. We're always hot loading into our chip vans. The grinder stops. We do maintenance. I just want to clarify that on that end. So we're just trying to not, piss everybody off. We understand people live across the street. We understand all that. I don't know if anybody's been to Brunswick Road. You park right on the side of the road and just listen to the traffic. That's really, really loud. So we're just trying to work with everybody to make it acceptable to all the permitting. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to the next rigorous technical analysis that we did was on traffic, and I'd like to invite Kevin Carstens with W-Trans to speak to the methodology and the context for their approach.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you for having me. I'm Kevin Carstens. I'm a senior traffic engineer with W-Trans, and we prepared the traffic study pursuant to this project. So to just give a quick overview of what we discussed, what we reviewed, we looked at the 4 CEQA items related to traffic. That includes impacts to adopted plans and policies regarding circulation, bicycles, pedestrians, transit, roadway, etc. Vehicle miles traveled, safety, including hazardous uses or other such conditions, and then emergency response and emergency access. In addition, we also looked at intersection operations against the county adopted general plan, which means when you're going through an intersection, how long do you have to wait to go through that intersection on average? How does this project affect that? Our analysis was based on traffic counts that we collected at each study intersection, as well as for the 2 project sites, the Bennett site and the Brunswick site. We collected several days of 24 hours a day counts of vehicles going in and out of each of those sites, as well as classification of those vehicles, whether they were personal vehicles, work trucks, big haul trucks, things like that. And then based on that, our plus project analysis said, okay, what happens if the Bennett site closes, all of those trips come over to the Brunswick site, and then as a matter of being conservative, we said, okay, what if the Bennett or the Brunswick site wasn't operational today, and you had all of those trips materializing in our plus project scenario? So then we took a look at how things look today with the project, how things look 20 years from now using the county's travel demand model and its anticipated growth in traffic over the next 30 to 40 years, and then how does it look in the future with the project. So those are our 4 scenarios we looked at. Based on all of that, what we determined was that the project would have a less than significant impact, not no impact, but less than significant, below thresholds, against those adopted CEQA policies, as well as against the county's general plan with respect to operations at the intersections. With that, we did have 3 recommendations to reduce 3 impacts to below significance. One was for putting in marked walkways on site between the buildings, the accessible parking, the trash enclosure, those kinds of facilities. Another one was for bicycle parking. Not that we anticipate bicycles to be used to get to and from the site, but it is a state law. So in order to be in compliance with state law, as CEQA requires, we made that recommendation. And then the last one was for installation of a right turn taper into the site. So I think with that, any questions?
Just to add some context to the right turn taper, on your screen you'll see a very small red sliver at the existing encroachment. That would be the area of improvement. So the existing encroachment is nearly sufficient for this.
Did you consider the trucks not going from Bennett to the site without going on to Brunswick, that they would have egress through the Rise Gold portion of the property so that they could come that way and reduce traffic on Brunswick?
We for our analysis, assumed all trips in and out of this project site would use the driveway on Brunswick.
I have some questions. What direction are trucks leaving the site primarily? Are they going towards 174 or more towards 49? or is it some combination?
Based on the data provided by the applicant when we began our study, it appears that the distribution is roughly about half, maybe a little less than half, to and from State Route 49. And then there's an additional component going to and from State Route 174.
So about half and half.
A little bit more 65-35.
Okay. And then were you looking at truck traffic on the anticipated maximum day of, what was it, 200 trucks a day? Or was this on a more typical loading conditions?
So per CEQA, we do look at typical operations, and we based it on the existing activity at the two sites. In terms of 200 trucks per day, we did find, on the days that we collected counts, we got to 179. So that's not 200, but that is relatively close. That is within the typical assumed margin of error for traffic engineering, since we do our best to collect data at intersections and all of that, but you can only collect so much data at any given time.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I've got for now. Anything else on your presentation?
Yeah, we have, I think, 2 more slides.
Great, thank you.
Alrighty, just a brief description about project screening. I believe staff covered that fairly well, which is we have this existing trees that are located off of the left side of Brunswick Road in that photo there. And that second photo at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen shows what the screening looks like from the site looking towards Brunswick Road. With that, there's additional vegetation being proposed to be planted within our landscape plan. Next slide, please. Lastly, these 2 points regarding stormwater management. As we discussed with environmental health, the nature of not disturbing the site is a priority, as Commissioner McAteer put, that it's really hard to do anything else with the site other than park vehicles on it. Any kind of ground disturbance is problematic. So with that, we're directing all stormwater to the existing drainage channels. And then regarding dust control or general air quality, we coordinated closely with the Northern Sierra Air Quality Management District to ensure that this project wasn't going to present a significant impact to the air quality for the region. And I believe the Air Quality Management District is here today to answer questions if you would like to direct those their way. Next slide, please. Great. In conclusion, I'd just like to reiterate that a project like this, what the real result is increased wildfire safety for the greater community. Having businesses operate in a capacity that allows them not only to go cut vegetation, but to bring it to a location to process safely and then send to biomass facilities or wood manufacturers is something that is an asset to public safety. And that's really the priority. The nature of this site is that it would be relatively, really no disturbance of this existing paved site. I can't think of a better use or a better place for a business like this to operate. If you have any questions or concerns, we're happy to answer them. And I think Sharon, my counterpart here, wanted to address the comment that was shared by Commissioner McAteer.
Yeah, I just wanted to address that Mountain Enterprises, the current operations on Bennett Road, that is a permitted operation. So they have an active solid waste permit. They have an active stormwater permit. They are managing that in accordance with all the requirements. They do not have a use permit, but that's because that's on the property owner. That came up of an issue while they were operating there, as well as all of the other people who are on that property operating there. And so they actively have been working with the property owner and environmental health to help them with their use permit. In doing all of that, they thought it would be a good idea to, instead of leasing a property, to just have a more permanent location. To move those permitted operations. And I just want to, emphasize that those are permitted solid waste operations that they would move over that are currently occurring, and they don't have noise complaints currently or any non-compliance at that location, and that would be moved over to this location. They purposely chose not to move the grinding operations over, obviously, until this use permit came into play. They did park vehicles there, but that's mainly because vehicles were being parked there previous to them owning it too, so it wasn't really thought of a major impact. And The only time they've operated as far as the actual operations of wood grinding was for the noise study so that there could be a very accurate understanding of what that noise would look like. And they took those operations directly over from Bennett over to here in order to do that so that we could have a proper study completed for this.
Commissioner McAteer, do you want to ask
Yes.
questions to the applicant?
Yes, it begs the question, outside of paying rent to this owner, you are moving this let me ask a few questions. Outside of paying rent, is there enough space at the existing facility to perform all of the functions that you would need?
Not really. The reason why is the property is extremely small. It's very tight. There are safety risks as far as there's very tight turning for the trucks. And everything is happening in a very compacted space, which is not something we necessarily would want to do for the employees either.
Yeah, we're only operating on about, I believe, 2 acres there, Sharon, give or take. And I think it's just a more safer operation moving that. And once the opportunity came up, and it's all paved, right? So we don't have to making all this type of dust and to the neighbors.
Okay, so let me, because Commissioner Millman and I sort of see the same question, which is everything that's being placed at the new site is truly a temporary means. And so we all recognize that PG&E for 20 years didn't do a damn thing. And so now we're all facing what your contract is with PG&E, and we're appreciative of the service. I want you to know that. Everyone in here thinks that there needs to be wood grinding and all this kind of stuff taking place. But I have to understand, what do you foresee as the future of wood grinding in Nevada County for your company? Because there comes a point where you sort of say, okay, PG&E, we've done all your power lines, and so now what? So could you give me a forecast as to what Mountain Enterprise looks like in Nevada County for the upcoming years?
Yes, obviously we want to deal with what the problem we have is right now, right? Picking up the fuels off the ground, get them processed through and get them to a mill or a cogen plant. Honestly, the future holds, right? I know there's electric grinders out there. They have not actually come out to the public, right? That's an option. We looked at curtain burners. We looked at, what are they called? There's a carbonizer. I think everybody's seen those. We are actively trying to get a permit to put those here so we don't have the grinding noise. So that's an ongoing process. I want to help as much as I can to the community. We have a firewood processor. We did not put that on here. We didn't understand on the traffic. If it's going to raise up 300 more trips, will that violate us on the traffic side? So we have all these alternative options. We have it here. We just haven't put it on paper yet because we don't know what the future holds.
Well, I mean, you have some idea more than I do as to how many more miles of trees you have to cut along lines and things like that. That's what I'm sort of looking for your business plan future.
Yes. As far as Mountain Enterprise, we want to continue operating as long as we can to be competitive in the market for tree contractors, right? That's why I'm here, is to continue the company to grow with a client. Currently, right now, we have a 3-year contract. We're trying to push for more. I mean, that's what it is. I don't have a 10-year.
Are you 60% done in Nevada County, or are you 10%?
I mean, if we go down the street into one of those power lines that crosses, go ahead. It's a maintenance point right now, right? And that's what we're here for, is to maintain the lines as best we can and also serve the community.
So you're telling me that you're past the stage of, boy, we've got a serious problem, trees everywhere, and now we're on to just the maintenance stage of Nevada County.
Yes. As everybody knows, the EVM stage that happened a few years ago where there was big right-of-ways, I think everybody kind of saw that, where there was a bunch of wood getting removed. Right now it's hit and miss. We're dealing with wood that's 100 feet from any type of house. We're picking it up and bringing it here. That's why we haven't pursued the whole development permit. for over 200 tons because we're not necessarily having that capacity right now coming into that yard. Can I answer the question?
Are you solely the provider for PG&E in Nevada County?
Currently, for a utility tree contractor, yes.
And there's another company coming out of your yard called something. What's it called?
There's our trucking company, they're High Sierra. They actually haul the chips.
No, there's another company.
Probably one of our subcontractors. Tree Service Kings, maybe?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're saying not everyone has Mountain Enterprise on it. You're contracting with other people to do services.
Yes, we do fire safe council services, clearing services all up and down Highway 20, basically bidding on other projects as well.
So why didn't you make things a little bit more permanent on that? Why didn't you come to us with a more permanent structure like some light poles that don't use generators, maybe moving the buildings closer to Brunswick to catch the electric pole that's right there to bring some electricity into those facilities? Because I think most of us are sitting here saying the noise is a huge problem. And so to ameliorate these, your neighbors here would be to see how you could electrify things more than putting a generator for lights, a generator for the building, yada, yada, yada. So could you answer that?
So long-term, they would like to do that, but they need to move operations now to make it safe for their employees. And they also need, there is the underlying arsenic contamination and some of the other things that they would have to work through DTSC. We actually reached out to DTSC to see how long that process is to even start. It's a year-long process to even start looking and getting a full declaration of what is needed in order for them to break ground underneath that asphalt. And you're looking at a year to start.
Right,
Who knows how long it's going to be past that point, and they want to start grinding wood there.
I understand
yesterday.
that. I'm talking about the truck scale could be moved closer to the Highway 174. I'm talking about the lighting stanchions could be moved right next to 174 because the power lines go on your side of the road on 174. Why not turn to these people and say, we're going to bring down the decibels today by putting things electrified?
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Commissioner.
I'm not shy. You've known that about me for a long time, Theo.
I think you've made a great point, and if I can just have a moment. Yeah, thank you for sharing. We are absolutely open to making that a condition of approval of the project if we would need to electrify those structures, relocate them as needed to make a PG&E connection versus the generators.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal because now you're saying I'll take 2 generators off that run those buildings, and I'll take 2 generators off that run the light stanchions, and we may have to reorganize where things are so that we don't have so much interference with arsenic or whatever, the asphalt and all. But you and I know the property, I was out there, that there's that light pole right there, right where you could put those 4 items.
We would need understanding that we would be allowed to put the light pole in, though that would be allowed without having going through the entire DTSC process to install that pole.
Well, we'll deal with the other side of the aisle shortly.
We'll talk.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that because I want to be. I'm. If you know me, I'm about as frank as they get. Because I've got 10 rounds sitting in my front yard from your operation. So I have been ticked off with you past, so now we're best friends. So I'd like to talk about. So I really want to compliment you thank you for doing that. And this side of the aisle, I'm hoping, can work with you to be able to take those 4 things off the plate, so that now we have less noise going on in the operation. And so I'll defer to some of my members here, and I'll get back to you. Okay.
Thank you for the questions. And that's what we're here for. I could have just not came here and done other stuff, but
you wouldn't want to do that with me, at least.
But great points. We, like Sharon said, we're trying to get the grinding going as fast as possible. That's why we went with all the temporary stuff. It wasn't to do it on purpose. It was, hey, let's get grinding, and then we'll start, hey, electric pools, fire hydrant hookup, the whole 9 yards. So thanks for all the questions.
Thank you.
Could I ask them one thing that I'm not sure people caught? Did you say you only have 3 years left on your contract?
Well, we have work. We're always bidding. It's a bidding market, so I can't guarantee I'll be sitting there grinding in 10 years.
Well, so that would maybe be a reason why you have more temporary structures. You at this point have 3 more years of work contracted with PG&E. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So we're trying to, obviously not just PG&E, we have all their buckets of work as well. We do logging and everything else, so yes.
And the original plan, when we were first putting this together, did have a permanent structure. We did want to do, Mountain Enterprises did want to put in a permanent office at that location at the beginning of this. The problem is, once again, a year just to start the process with DTSC to put a shovel in the ground. So in that area of operation. And so we can't wait that long to move our grinding operations over. So the hope is that in the future, they'll amend this use permit to possibly put in a permanent building.
Question for you. To that point, did you test, did you guys do a phase 2 across the site? Do you know for sure that the contamination is everywhere across, or are there pockets where it's over here we know, but over here maybe you could put something?
I don't believe we've done any testing specifically for this project, but this may be a good direction for staff with the context that they had from the Rise Gold project for what's known in that region.
Hello, Commissioners. When I reviewed the Phase 1 environmental report, it talked primarily about the arsenic-contaminated mine waste being underneath asphalt pad. So if there were to be any, underground trenching, I'd want to check with environmental health, get their input on it. But we might want to kind of steer away from disturbing the asphalt pad. I'm not aware of a Phase 2 environmental assessment being done. I don't believe we've done a Phase 2 for this project or for the project sites.
Thank you. Okay, I have a couple more questions for applicant, and anybody else have questions? Yeah, I know we want to get to public comment, but I'm thinking that some of our questions will head off some of your comments, but that might be wishful thinking. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so I wanted to talk really quickly about vehicle repair and maintenance on site. What kind of maintenance on site?
Mainly just greasing equipment, no major repairs. That would be load bedded off-site. So simple maintenance, oil changes, very, very minor maintenance.
And so where are you disposing of oil?
They're going to have 50, those, there was a picture earlier that has some enclosed containers. They are going to have drums on containment, spill containment trays with 55-gallon drum that would be properly disposed of.
Okay. Commissioner Gerst?
I have one more. So your yard in Coloma, your city in Coloma, mini city there, how did that develop? I mean, that thing's massive. Did you start off with a few acres and expand, or do you see something like that projected here? You aren't using all this space, but or are you foreseeing this will be the limit of what you want?
This will be the limit. That's our main hub. That's where we do a lot of our major repairs, and one of our corporate offices down there. You're referring to the Lotus Road yard, correct? Placerville? Yeah, so that started off with 10 acres. We actually bought it with one Connex box on there, and that was our shop in late 1990s. And then obviously we've been expanding over the years, and we bought 20 more acres around it. And we have also another grinding area there too, all permitted through El Dorado County.
Commissioner, just to fill you in, the Grass Valley plan for Loma Rica has a cogeneration plant at the corner of Brunswick and Idaho, Maryland. Okay, that's under their plan currently that the city council has adopted there. So they're looking to actually put a cogeneration plant about 3 or 4 blocks from this site. For your information.
Okay.
That's good to know for me too.
Commissioner Karst.
I have some questions about the light towers. Those are used to illuminate the wood chipping operations, is that correct?
Yeah, mainly for wintertime. They're not just going to be turned on like right now in the summertime.
Okay, so
Just
they're
to clarify on that, yeah.
They're used during evening hours in the winter and under emergency events, is that correct?
Correct.
And are those light towers in compliance with county standards of fully shielded downward facing?
Yes. Correct, Sharon?
Yeah, they did the study, they would be facing down, it would be condition of the permit.
Okay. And then I was just curious if you know where the next nearest processing facility is. If products weren't processed here, green waste wasn't processed here or the Bennett site, do you know where it would have to travel to?
So this, we would have to haul it directly all the way down to Rockland, is the nearest cogen plant. In certain situations, we've hauled material that we could not go to here all the way to our Placerville yard.
Okay. And then I know there was some talk about the air curtain incinerator, and you mentioned it in your comments too. I had to Google what that was. Yes. I think it's pretty cool. Can you talk to me about that, why that was included in the staff report and the plans around those?
Yes, obviously it's to eliminate trucking and exposure on more semi-trucks on the road with the public. It actually just, they call it a curtain burner. It's basically a big flame and it actually burns really hot. The processing tons per hour on that's about 6 to 7. It does emit some smoke. That was, we were going back and forth with the air quality board. And I don't think we had enough time to get all that ironed out to put on here on this plan. But that is definitely in process, plus a carbonizer, which actually burns up the material of the wood. We split it really small and put it in there with a big excavator, and it comes out with a char, like black residue basically, and then we just dispose of that.
And that can be used in agricultural
Yes,
purposes,
agriculture, yes, correct.
And if they choose to add that equipment to this property, is that another permit application process with the county?
Yes, Commissioner Garst, it would be an amendment to the environmental document and then also an amendment to the development permit.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be likely that there'd have to be some sort of mass limitation on what the air curtain incinerator could incinerate, so it wouldn't have a significant air quality impact, which is the reason why it's not proposed in this project now.
Understood. Thank you. That's all I had.
And I just want to add to that, if we had those two approved, then obviously it would cut down the grinding machine, right? So if those two were approved, then we could run those instead of the grinding noise. And those are, I believe, half, right, Sharon?
Those two?
The air curtain burner, the air curtain burner machine and the carbonizer machine, those would, in a sense, replace the grinder.
And they're not noisy?
And they're way not noisy. Yeah.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to go to public comment. So see you guys back here at 3:17.
Well, this is interesting.
Money?
Okay, everyone, let's see if we can get this rolling again.
So you got to go through the lunchroom.
Or not.
Yeah, that was funny.
All right, everybody.
My phone went off. I'm like,
Let's see if we can get this going again.
go on, buddy.
At this point, we're going to open this up to public comment. Each person gets 3 minutes to speak here. We do understand that the majority of you are opposed to this. We've read your letters, and we've tried to ask questions anticipating the issues that are there. If you feel like you have something new, we are excited to hear from you. But if you feel that your comment has been addressed or the question has been asked, or if somebody else has said what you were going to say, if in the interest of time, if we can kind of forego duplicate comments, that would be fabulous. So let's have a line and give it a start.
Now, Ralph is from an organization.
Now, I believe our first gentleman is from an organization, in which case he gets 5 minutes.
Oh, thank you. I think I'll be 3 minutes, and maybe somebody else will claim that title. I'm Ralph Silberstein, president of Community Environmental Advocates Foundation, also known as CEA Foundation.
Excuse me just a minute. If we could get, if you guys have stuff to chat about, maybe out in the lobby. Thank you. We just need to form our line. Okay. Well, form it a little quieter with hand signals. Thanks.
I'm glad I got 5 minutes. I just burned through part of it. Anyway, I want to start out by saying that we recognize the importance of the work that Mountain Enterprise is doing to reduce fire hazards. However, we feel that the Brunswick site is generally inappropriate for this heavy industrial operation, given its potential impacts. Our key point today is this project requires an environmental impact report, not a mitigated negative declaration. The California Supreme Court has ruled that if a substantial evidence supports a fair argument that a project may have a significant environmental effect, an environmental impact report is required, even if the agency has contrary evidence. And indeed, there are numerous aspects of this project which likely will create significant environmental effects. For example, the project consists of a high-throughput industrial wood grinding operation without enclosures, producing significant noise and with dubious trust in the modeling that's done on the noise studies. Operations will produce 179 daily heavy vehicle trips and 483 light vehicle trips per day. The project will increase the risk of wildfire, and there are worrisome safety issues due to the site's ingress, egress, and traffic impacts on nearby intersections. Also, air quality impacts may have a significant impact on nearby residences and on a nearby child care facility. This is not a complete list, but each one of these listed impacts is likely significant. This is substantial evidence. The Mitigated Negative Declaration, or MND, repeatedly makes assumptions of less than significant without providing the necessary data. What were the baseline conditions? Note that one cannot determine that each of these environmental effects is less than significant when the MND doesn't even establish a baseline, a key requirement under CEQA. Impacts must be assessed against the environmental conditions before the project starts. And that's before the non-permitted operations started of both sites. Hopefully you have a chance to read the comment letter that we submitted, in addition to our letter from our attorneys, Schutten-Haley and Weinberger, which addresses the lack of compliance with CEQA requirements. You'll hear from several of us today speaking to different pieces of this record. This project clearly meets California's fair argument standard, which requires a full environmental impact report whenever substantial evidence suggests a project may have a significant unmitigated effect. Clearly, an environmental impact report is required. Please send this project back to the drawing board. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you could please state your name and where you live.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is John Vaughn. I live in District 3. I'm speaking on behalf of the CEA Foundation. This project is far from a simple consolidation. It obscures an industrial-scale grinding operation and heavy truck traffic, which is a major change at Brunswick. It's not a consolidation, it's a new project. The MND treats this project as a consolidation of the existing use with the grinding operation on East Bennett Road. It leans heavily on that framing in its vehicle miles traveled analysis. The argument is traffic impacts will not really increase because this activity already exists today, just split across 2 addresses. But there is no lawful baseline to consolidate against. CEQA requires the county to set a baseline from before the project started, then evaluate the entire proposed operation, not compare it to an unpermitted status quo. The relocation of an industrial scale operation to an area surrounded by residences is a major change not evaluated in the MND. The Brunswick site sits in a basin below neighborhood homes, creating a setting where sound travels upward towards residences and with significant traffic added to adjacent roads. The vehicle miles analysis never accounts for these differences or the fact that most traffic would concentrate on an already troubled stretch of road. The MND claims that a grinder is already in operation at Brunswick, but as we've heard, that's not really the case. Yet that claim is doing a lot of work in these documents and serving as the basis for treating this as business as usual, not a new operation. The only grinding activity at Brunswick was a grinder brought in for noise testing, not an ongoing operation. Regardless of that claim, an unpermitted use should not earn a shortcut around review, nor should a new grinding operation be layered on top of it. The MND is inadequate. This project requires a full EIR. And I would like to add that code compliance based solely on complaints is an absurd way to run a planning process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Greg Thrush. I live in District 3. Thanks for having this hearing today, and I want to address the issue of county precedent. The Board of Supervisors' recent decision about the exact location is directly relevant. It argues against this project. Over the decades, the area surrounding the site has developed into a residential neighborhoods, making it the prospect of an intensive industrial operation in close proximity to these residences untenable. Recognizing this, in February 2024, following the full environmental impact report, the Board of Supervisors voted unanimously 5-0 to deny Rise Grass Valley's application to reopen the Idaho-Maryland mine, and on the land that includes the 66 acres that are now proposed for this project. Much of what was said by the supervisors then is applicable and the land use priorities in this area today. Heidi Hall, District 1, said, "I have a positive obligation to continue to protect the natural beauty of this community and the general plan and the rural quality and character that we have here and love so much." Ed Schofield, District 2, said, "You've got this line between the Brunswick property, between rural and community. That means that this operation will have the possible impact on thousands of people, if not more, if something goes wrong." Lisa Swarthart, District 3, said, "I don't see it. You cannot deny that the area has been urbanized. Times have changed. This means that this operation will have the possible impact, the three issues that are not able to be mitigated are aesthetics, noise on the part of the application, and then the transportation." Sue Hook in District 4 said, "This one doesn't fit this spot anymore." And Hardy Bullock, District 5, said, "I don't believe that doing that type of activity is sustainable within the community close to the boundary areas of an urban interface like Grass Valley." projects are different, but the idea is similar. Commissioners, this board already weighed noise and transportation on this exact land and found them unmitigable. Furthermore, Rise Gold retains a contractual option to buy this land back if its mining project is ever approved. A fact that should give this commission pause about appearing to be inconsistent about its decisions and setting a dangerous precedent. The use of a mitigated negative declaration is inadequate under CEQA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Dale Durrett, President of the Brunswick Homeowners Association. We are on the south end of this project, and we consist of 16 residential 3-acre parcels. The project would grind and stockpile wood, park hundreds of vehicles, and run heavy equipment with hot exhaust, all within a very fire hazard severity zone. It is surrounded by a dense forest, thick with dead and downed material, with residential development extending across the slopes above and around the site. The fire moves markedly faster uphill as flames preheat and dry the field above them. Against that risk, the MND points toward a regulatory standard broadly stating that biomass piles must meet the requirements set forth in the California Fire Code without citing a section, stating a figure, or showing the project's actual pile plan against any standard. That standard exists and is specific. Chapter 28 of the Fire Code sets real limits on pile size, separation, and monitoring. It is not sufficient to cite a code to comply with CEQA. The project must provide specific information on what standards will be used and allowed. When received no substantive analysis anywhere in the document, despite the county's 2025 Community Wildfire Protection Plan naming local wind conditions as one of the defining wildfire risks in the terrain like this, and the projects identified on-site fire suppression supply in a single 10,000-gallon storage tank. The M&D never confirms that the Water District has committed to unrestricted service during a water shortage, nor does it analyze whether enough water exists to prevent a spread of a wildfire in this location. The lapse is especially notable given that the county's prior green waste program on part of the same property required documented active management, pile heights, twice daily temperature monitoring, a water tender on site during grinding, and clearance from the adjacent vegetation. That program ran a few scheduled weeks a year. This proposal would run a commercial scale indefinitely without the monitoring protocol the smaller program provided voluntarily. A site that risks fire risk directly below its neighbors' homes deserves more rigor than citing a code and providing a single water hookup, not less. The MED is inadequate, and this project requires a
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Ginger Ward. I live at 13120 Woodrose Way, which is directly across from the mine property, and it is in District 3. I'm reading these comments on behalf of my neighbor, Christy Hubbard, who lives on Mink Court and could not be here today. This is not the first time this property has caused a serious noise problem. In 2023, the Fire Safe Council ran a green waste grinding program at this exact site, which is 12625 Brunswick Road. Their own operational plan promised that, quote, the site is large enough to prevent a noise nuisance to adjacent communities and residences, unquote. That promise was wrong. During 1 week in 2023, the grinding noise got so bad that Christy called the Fire Safe Council, then followed up in writing saying, and I'm quoting her directly, "The noise really was far too much for everyday living. I couldn't even have a conversation with anyone on my back porch." She also expressed concern about the precedent they were setting, noting that a temporary inconvenience takes on a whole different perspective if it becomes a permanent one. The Fire Safe Council's executive director didn't dispute any of it. She admitted equipment usage was trending upward, and this wasn't a complaint that disappeared into a private inbox. Craig Grisbach from the county's own Office of Emergency Services was copied on every email. The county already knew in real time that the site's noise mitigation didn't work in practice. Now the county is being asked to approve a mitigated negative declaration for a wood processing facility on the same parcel, an operation that would run longer and more often than a seasonal program ever did. The county already has direct evidence that a similar approach failed at this exact address. Christie's position is simple: deny the addition of wood grinding at this property. If the commission proceeds anyway, she is asking at minimum for a full environmental impact report with real sound measurements at nearby homes, post-construction verification once the equipment is running, and a real complaint-response process. This site has already proven its noise problems can't be trusted. Christie's full written comment with the email record and the operational plan is already on file with the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Diane Range. I live in the neighborhood of Greenhorn, and our intersection is Greenhorn and Brunswick, and it's only 2 miles from where I live. I'm speaking on behalf of Patrick Dutro, a 5-year resident on Burma Road, who could not be here today. Mr. Dutro's comments are as follows. I ask the county to deny this project or, at a minimum, require a full environmental impact report before this project moves forward. Adding a large wood grinding operation to our neighborhood is a really bad idea. The current proposal does not adequately evaluate the unique topography and rural residential setting that exists in the Brunswick area. The county found this exact location unsuitable when it rejected the Idaho-Maryland mine in 2024 due to traffic and noise impacts, among other factors. Primarily, I am concerned about the traffic safety issue at the intersection of Brunswick Road and Highway 174. In my 5 years of living at this location, I have seen 5 to 6 accidents at that intersection, causing either bodily injury to occupants or, in one case, a fatality. I can actually hear the collisions from my house when they happen. We also endure the nuisance of regular horn honking from cars involved in close call situations. Also, when turning onto Brunswick from Burma, I have witnessed commercial truck traffic exceeding the speed limit, making just getting onto Brunswick a dangerous situation. In addition to the traffic safety issue, I object to the increase in truck traffic noise as it carries upwards from Brunswick. I moved to Grass Valley for the peace and tranquility it offers, but even based on current traffic levels, it is sometimes difficult to carry on table conversations with family members outdoors during peak traffic periods. Approving this proposal to allow up to 179 heavy trucks a day will make the noise situation much worse. Lastly, I'm also very concerned about the potential of a wildfire being ignited from this grinding site, which obviously would have a devastating impact on the entire area. So again, I urge you to vote against this proposal and allow our neighborhood to retain its current charm. Thank you for considering my comments.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on this project. I'm a resident of District 3. My name is Barbara Ravines, and I'm speaking on behalf of Community Environmental Advocates Foundation. The mitigated negative declaration quantifies the project's operational air quality impacts, but does nothing to mitigate them. Its own modeling puts a number of on the full daily equipment fleets: 3 rubber-tired loaders, 2 excavators, 1 wood grinder, 2 generator sets, 2 light towers, plus on-road truck traffic, up to 8 pounds per day of NOx and 1,226 tons of carbon dioxide per year. Yet the mitigated neg deck only quality mitigation measure is a construction phase dust checklist that expires by its own terms before grading and building permits are even issued. Nothing addresses the grinder, the loaders, the truck fleet during the years of daily operation the modeling itself describes. In reality, these operations are greater than the construction phase and must be fully analyzed for air quality impacts. The gap matters locally and specifically. The nearest residence sits as close as 270 feet from the site, roughly 2/3 of a mile away. The site is also within range of Kinderland and infant care, a sensitive receptor in the mitigated negative declaration, does not identify or discuss anywhere in its air quality and analysis, despite the children being recognized as a sensitive population for pollutant exposure. And the mitigated neg deck aggregate totals are never translated into a concentration or exposure estimate at any specific receptor, residential or otherwise, leaving less than significant conclusion untested against the locations and the populations it's meant to protect. Measures commonly used at comparable wood processing facilities are notably absent: water misting and grinder feed and discharge points and wind speed thresholds above grind.
Thank you so much.
Good day, Commissioners. I'm Dolly Lewis from District 3, here on behalf of CEA. Traffic is a significant impact, and the MND buries it. Primary ingress and egress for this project, especially for heavy trucks, is a roughly half-mile stretch of Brunswick Road connecting the project driveway to Highway 174. A notorious, steeply graded, climbing 2-lane segment lined with rural residences on both sides. The MND's only response is a right turn taper to let southbound trucks decelerate before turning into the driveway. The county's own 132-page transportation impact study, prepared by W-Trans, noted 7 intersections along this corridor with full collision history, queuing, and signal warrant analysis. Yet the MND compresses most of it into one sentence, stating only that several nearby intersections already meet warrants for signalization under existing conditions, without naming which ones or disclosing how severe the numbers are. And the numbers are severe. Under existing conditions, before a single project trip is added, the westbound left turn at West Brunswick Road and Idaho-Maryland Road is already failing. An LOSF rating with over 100 seconds of delay in the evening peak, and W-Trans's own report states that this, quote, would worsen with project traffic added. 4 of the study's 7 intersections already meet the signal warrant with 0 project traffic, and the intersection closest to the site at 174 in Brunswick has a collision rate 4 times the statewide average, with 18 collisions recorded between 2020 and 2024. 60% of this project's traffic will pass through that one dangerous stretch of road. Brunswick Road dead ends at 174 with no other route out. So both southbound trip categories identified pass through the same intersection. W-Trans recommends specific fixes there, a warning plaque and removal of the northbound slip lane. Neither appears anywhere in the MND's mitigation measures, which only address the project driveway. These are not hypothetical safety concerns. The MND is inadequate, and this project requires a full environmental impact report. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Gary Perazzi. I live in District 3, and I'm speaking on behalf of the CEA Foundation. This site has already proven that noise modeling can be very wrong. The MND's conclusion that operational noise won't exceed the applicable standard rests on a third-party acoustic study. But the study's inputs mix site-specific and generic data. The wood grinder, among the loudest sources modeled, was field measured on this exact site, but the air curtain burner figures come from a different Mountain Enterprise facility entirely in Placerville. The loaders, generators, and light towers all rely on generic manufacturers' figures, not anything measured here. Nowhere does the report confirm that the facilities combined current operation noise levels, not the individual pieces of equipment, but everything running together, were ever measured against the model's estimate at the nearest residence. And the methodology never addressed wind as a propagation variable, despite the site's exposed sloped terrain. In rejecting the Idaho-Maryland mine in 2024, Supervisor Hardy Bullock said the noise modeling in that case was, quote, a fairy tale, end quote, and that he didn't believe it was accurate. The same skepticism applies here with more force. This model mixes site-specific measurements with data borrowed from other equipment and other locations, and it has never been checked against the facility actually running at scale. An ongoing noise monitoring program should be required with possible mitigations for reducing noise or ceasing operations under certain conditions. A noise conclusion this consequential for a site that has already produced and documented a problem at a fraction of the scale should not be treated as settled. The MND is inadequate, and this project requires a full environmental impact report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Don Ravines. I live in Morgan Ranch, speaking on behalf of CEA Foundation. This project moves the county backward on climate and sits on a contamination risk that MND does not address. Greenhouse gas emissions from this project are estimated at 1,226 tons of annual operating CO2e, a 37% increase in Nevada County's commercial energy emissions, according to Nevada County's 2022 greenhouse gas emission inventory update published in May 2025. State law requires the county to achieve carbon neutrality no later than 2045 and to reduce emissions to 40% below 1990 levels by 2030. Any increase of this size moves it exactly the wrong direction. We're in an environmental crisis, and the entire driving force behind this project is an attempt to mitigate the fire risk that is itself worsening because of the climate crisis. The MND identifies the increase and proposes no mitigation for it at all in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. Separately, the county's own staff report identifies mine waste fill beneath the site's asphalt pad with elevated arsenic levels, material that would require characterization, cleanup, and regulatory oversight if disturbed. The project doesn't propose disturbing that waste directly, but this project brings years of heavy equipment, loaded trucks, and daily high-impact activity to the same paved surface. There's a real likelihood that activity at this scale over time cracks and compromises that asphalt cap. The MND has no monitoring plan and no response plan for that risk. Two different problems, one shared thread. The MND quantifies and impact emissions or contamination risks and then stops without proposing how the county will manage when it is just certified. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Keene. I live in the Wolf Creek watershed in District 3. And I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity. I agree with most of the comments you've heard today from the CEA Foundation, especially their request that we get a full environmental impact report on this. I don't have really prepared written, so I'm going to try to wing it here a little bit. Excuse me, but I especially wanted to address Section 10, which I think you'll find on pages 74 through 79 of your, I think it's the staff report. It's the hydrology and water quality. I'm a member of the Wolf Creek Community Alliance, which we founded about 25 years ago here in Nevada County, and I've lived in Grass Valley in Nevada County since 1970. And in fact, I visited this site in 1970 as a young builder and bought some lumber at the sawmill that was there. So that was over 50 years ago. And I really appreciate, Chair, your discussion about the history of this area and its past uses that this particular parcel has been through. In this hydrology report, it begins the past use as a lumber mill. Well, that was only 50 years ago. And 120 years before that, this area was used by the Nisenan people who lived here, and it had a healthy stream running right through it. And it had fish in it. It was a place where people could live. And we're planning for, I appreciate the historical perspective that you guys have thought about looking at its past uses and its future uses. And so 170 years ago, it was before the mining happened, it had a very good use. Maybe in another 170 years, we should plan to go back to something like that. So South Fork of Wolf Creek, oh dear, I'm running a little behind. Well, South Fork of Wolf Creek, it does mention the creek in this report is basically buried underneath all the fractured pavement that you've been discussing here. And I would recommend that any project that you approve here would start with daylighting that creek and bringing it back so that the creek actually flows through it again like it did in its previous use before we all arrived here. Anyway, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, hello, my name is Mike Shea. I live at 11069 Cedar Ridge Drive, lived there the last 17 years. I object to the county adopting a mitigated negative declaration for this project. I'm going to talk about noise some more. So first off, the grinding operation can run from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. The generators could run from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So great if you can get them to, if you guys can put them from a power pole, that's terrific. And I want you to keep in mind that Saxby's conclusions on noise are based on assumptions and predictions. They don't reflect what noise residents may actually experience or how that operation will affect our quality of life. To develop the predictions, Saxby took noise measurements near 2 residential sites identified as sites 2 and 3. These measurements lasted only 10 minutes on one site, 7 minutes on the other. And I ask you, are 10 minutes and 7 minutes enough to make a calculation on something we may hear for years in the future? According to the noise studies, the site 2 and 3 noise measurements, the continuous ambient noise is currently 44 dBA and 42 dBA. Well, if the grinding operation is projected, they're telling us it's 54 dBA is the average noise level, but the maximum noise level is 62 dBA at nearby residences. So in other words, a 20 dBA increase in the noise when the grinding's going on. Since the grinder is what will produce the most noise and will run continuously, I think it's safe to assume that residents pretty much will hear nonstop maximum noise rather than just the general noise. We'll hear the maximum noise when that grinder is going. And that would be allowed between 7 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. Saxby tells us that an increase of 10 dBA is generally perceived as a doubling in loudness. But it won't be a 10 dBA increase, it'll be a 20 dBA increase. Based on what Saxby's telling us, the project will subject residents to what sounds like not just a doubling of noise, but a quadruple increase in noise. On the backup beeps, I think there's other methods of having safety for backups, and maybe they could take a look at those. The notice of availability concludes the project noise would be less than significant with mitigation. Yet if you look at the proposed mitigations, except for prohibiting the unnecessary idling of internal combustion engines, the noise mitigation measures all address project construction, not the day-to-day grinding operation, for which no other mitigations are listed. Please consider how this project noise will affect.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Richard Buck. Like others here, I live across the street from the Idaho Maryland mine. I'll start with, there is no more inappropriate location than on top of arsenic. That's just a ridiculous choice to make. There's also nothing temporary about this. There's some hand waving and maybes, and oh, this might change if this happens, but the grinding in trucks start soon. This is not a light industrial area. The noise from the grinding in trucks will be huge, as the previous speaker just said. A nearby light industrial residential area was mentioned much earlier, Loma Rica Airport. But the thing about Loma Rica Airport is there is no noise there. There's no grinding, there's no trucks, there's the occasional sound of a plane landing. There's nothing to compare with what's being proposed to go on here with the grinding. There's a nearby group of homes, a couple blocks away, on Dorsey Way. They're building homes. There's no noise. They've been building the homes for months. There's no noise made when they do this. There are other, better, less crowded spots. There's some a couple miles out on 174. There's others the other direction, a few miles east on Route 20, much more private with no arsenic. Putting this activity right in the middle of our area, right on top of arsenic, is just wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this recorded? That's a question. Is this session recorded?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Julie Carroll, and I live in Cedar Ridge. I have a really nice presentation that I've rehearsed to give to you, but so many things have occurred to me as I've listened to various people talking that I have a list of some other questions or comments I want written into the record. But because I kind of like my presentation, I'm going to give you the most succinct part of it, and it has to do with whether or not to remove the SP overlay. Why should the county remove the SP overlay from the Mountain F property at all? I've submitted this question and the supporting details in writing, so today I'll just talk about one thing. I emailed Senior Planner David Nicholas to ask why he thought the SP had to be removed. His answer, and I'm quoting, the SP is proposed to be removed solely because the original Nevada County Business and Industrial Center was never developed as originally envisioned. That's true. It hasn't materialized. But a plan that hasn't materialized isn't necessarily a plan that should be scrapped. If the county believes particular provisions of Ordinance 1853 are outdated, inappropriate, are no longer useful, the county should identify those provisions and explain why and amend them as needed. As the old saying goes, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Now the questions. And this is random because, as I said, it's just as I listened. Someone mentioned things happening in evening and at night. I don't know what those are, what happens in the evening and at night. Do the generators run at night also? Operation not to exceed the hours that are listed, but I note that also Saturdays may be involved, sometimes Sundays, sometimes holidays. That's all kind of if approved. There are a lot of, this I think just is mind-blowing. There are a lot of requirements that would be in place if this is approved, but it doesn't seem to be very clear who would monitor that and make sure that the people were still in compliance. And I'm not really comfortable with once a year, and especially when I notice that the county, by their own words, reacts in response to complaints. But I can't believe that county employees haven't driven by that site and seen what dozens of those bucket trucks parked there in non-compliance and not done anything. So I'm concerned about oversight of whatever goes on there.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Greg Ward. I reside at 13120 Woodrose Way, which is directly across Brunswick from the subject property. I'm here to voice my opposition to the proposed project for many of the reasons you've already heard and are yet to hear throughout the day. So I'm just going to focus on one important part that I felt came up short. I feel the public notice for this project was very inadequate. As planning commissioners, I want you to make informed decisions by hearing from as many people as possible that are going to be affected by this project in the area. As stated in the, as stated in the Planning Commission staff report, public notice was made 3 ways. Posting legal notices in the legal notice section of the Union newspaper. No disrespect to the newspaper, but only 40% of the households in western Nevada County are paid subscribers to the Union, leaving a big gap in people not knowing about the project. It was also posted on the state CEQA site, which again, I doubt very many people go to on a regular basis. And then mailing went out to landowners, but only within 500 feet of the subject property, leaving thousands of homeowners in the affected area not knowing about the project. And I do have a map if you want me to pass it out. You can see I put the boundaries of the project, the boundaries of the 500-foot notice, and the thousands of homes that are in the area that went unnotified. There's 3,600 homes within 2 miles of this project, the majority of which did not get public notice through the newspaper. I would like to see review of this project delayed until a broader public notice can happen, either through the other sources, but also increased mailings to all the households in the area. This is not the neighborhood for a major wood chipping wood chipping operation. The area surrounding the property contains thousands of households that will negatively be impacted by the project. I ask the Planning Commission to listen to the people who live in this area, take their concerns seriously, making a decision that could affect this community for years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Daniel Ketchum. I live at 11693 Brunswick Pines Road, which is approximately about a half mile from the project site. Bohemia Mill operated on that site in the early 1990s, closed, I think, 92, 93 era. And I live over the hill. There's a hill between me and the mill site. Yet we still experienced milling noise 7 days a week, 24/7. They operated 24/7 over there. And that mill was entirely enclosed. The milling operation was inside of industrial structures. And since the late 50s, early 60s, I presume it was an unregulated use that was probably grandfathered in, so they weren't subject to any purview. This proposed use needs to be highly scrutinized as to the unquestionable potential of industrial noise that would be incompatible to residential uses that entirely surround this property. If it should be approved, there needs to be ongoing noise monitoring requirement. As a side note, I'm a California licensed real estate broker. I'm very familiar with California onerous disclosure requirements, and regardless of a given or projected dBA level, a noise nuisance requires full disclosure, certainly not a desirable sale factor. If you were selling your property, you had to include that in your sale disclosure. In closing, to purchase a property with known mining and timber milling history without the benefit of a complete Phase 2 study, well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kevin Ray. It's my first Planning Commission meeting. Pretty interesting. Learned a lot.
If you can speak a little more directly into that microphone, we'll hear you better.
I'm sorry.
No worries. Thanks.
So I'm from the Live Oaks Homeowner Association. We're a little over a mile from the Brunswick location. And we've lived there for about 11 years. So we're relative newcomers, I guess. Looking at many other people in the room here talking today. We moved here because it's beautiful and it's quiet. We're concerned about a grinding operation and hope that maybe it won't happen. Thank you.
Thank you. See, next time it'll be your second time.
Hi, my name is Matt Sauer. I live at 12730 Brunswick Road, right across from the Brunswick sawmill there. My problem is these people are in code violation right now. Why should we trust them any further than today? I bought my property in 1996. I had to fight with the county over permits and everything on my property. These people don't comply to nothing. They feel that they can do whatever they want. I'm sorry, they should be shut down now. We all got to go underneath rules and restrictions. Thing is, inadequate water at that Brunswick sawmill. It's not my fault that the water ain't running good. I pay for my water. I got a fire hydrant right below my house. So they need to follow the same rules as the rest of us. So the big issue is our fires, our water, our dust, and our noise. I live right across from them. If you guys can let them go and my property value goes down, I plan on suing you.
I actually think that's against the rules.
I just want to thank you guys. You commissioners asked sharp, insightful, thoughtful questions, and I appreciate all of it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Elias. I'm not opposed to this project. Nevada County needs a modern, well-designed wood waste processing facility, and Mountain F Enterprise has the experience, the expertise, and the capability to provide that service. I'm asking this commission to help make sure this facility is designed for long-term, using modern technology and pollution controls wherever reasonably feasible. I've been working in the wood grinding industry for over 30 years and directly with Peterson Pacific Equipment, and that's the same grinder equipment the Mountain Enterprises use, and they're proposing a 1,000-horse wood grinder for this site. And I've been involved with electric grinder installations of approximately the same scale. Electric grinding isn't theoretical. It exists, it works, and for the fixed location operation like Brunswick, it's often the preferred approach, including operation cost. What really caught my attention in the county's California emission estimate model and the county's own numbers. The county model shows this project exceeds the operational NOx significant threshold, yet the same county Cal-EE mode model report says no measure selected under emission reduction. And about 78% of that project's NOx, which is going to amount just from that grinder, 3.5 tons or 78% of that per year from the grinder alone. Western Nevada County already has a serious ozone problem, and NOx contributes to that. So my question is, if the analysis crosses the NOx significance threshold, why are we actually doing nothing to reduce it? I'm not suggesting Mountain Enterprise has to buy an electric grinder tomorrow. Getting PG&E to provide significant power can take time. Believe me, I know it firsthand. One project took 18 months, but when we hear about 12 months, that's nothing in this business to put that infrastructure in. So anyway, but even so, in the county's environmental review, they acknowledge that PG&E power is available along Brunswick Road, while stating that connecting may not be feasible. May not be feasible is not a feasibility study. This development permit runs with the land and does not expire. Before accepting diesel power as the long-term default, determine whether electrification is feasible. If it can't happen immediately, establish a reasonable transition period. Believe me, I've been involved in these projects in downtown Santa Barbara. It can be done. It needs to be mitigated. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Allison Anderson, and I've lived in Grass Valley and Nevada City for about 25 years. I have a lot of family in Brunswick Drive as well as East Bennett. They were trying to come here on time, but they were having a hard time getting here. They're completely surrounded, these friends of mine, by this land in question, and they have a regenerative farm right there, as well as several other businesses that would be largely impacted. They have a letter that you've already received, and I won't read, it'd be too long to read at this point, but I just wanted to add to those concerns and what everybody else has already said, that there could be other alternatives, such as, instead of using diesel generators, possibly using solar, instead of grinding, maybe looking at permaculture alternatives such as hugelkultur, which can have incredible benefits both to the land, and it's quiet. It's really quiet. So I'm just wanted to put out there that there are some incredible alternatives that we could be looking at instead of all of this sort of caveman old technology. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to participate in the public comment? Okay, seeing no one, we're going to close public comment. Staff and applicant, would you like staff first, I guess, to address some of the comments or some of the issues in the comments?
Commissioners, if there's some certain question you'd like us to respond to, but I feel like we've spent the first couple hours talking about our noise analysis, our traffic analysis, and our air quality analysis, and the arsenic issues. So I'd just be repeating myself at that point. Is there anything specifically you'd like us to dive into?
I have a procedural question. There's been several public comments requesting a full EIR. And I wonder if you could speak to what that process looks like, who prepares that, and how that could possibly result in alternative findings from the negative mitigation or the.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the process for doing environmental review is looking to see if there's an exemption that covers the project. If there's not a specific exemption, either categorically or statutorily in CEQA, an initial study is prepared. So you prepare an initial study, you have the supporting documentation, whether it's noise, traffic, groundwater, et cetera. You look at the project's impacts and you look at the thresholds for significance. Through the initial study process, if there are no significant impacts that are identified, there are either no impacts or those impacts can be mitigated with mitigation to less than significant levels, then a mitigated negative declaration is prepared. If through that initial study process you find that there is a significant impact, that there is a triggering or an exceedance of an identified threshold, then an environmental impact report is prepared. An environmental impact report does not require extra studies or deeper studies or more significant studies. It's a disclosure document that discloses what the impacts are. So the impacts are either determined to be significant based on thresholds or less than significant. A level exceeding significance requires an EIR that requires alternative analysis for different project size, project locations. However, if no significant impacts are identified and adequate mitigation can be provided, then the appropriate outcome is the mitigated negative declaration. The claim about substantial evidence requiring an EIR, that can be true, but based on the comments received, we have not seen any substantial evidence, a difference of opinion, or just questioning the study's outcome is not substantial evidence. There needs to be substantial evidence in the form of a competing study, a study that shows that there had been flaws or mischaracterizations rather than just accusations of, we don't think it's right, you need to do an EIR. So in this case, an initial study was prepared, mitigation was identified, no areas were identified as being significant, so we've prepared and recommended approval of a mitigated negative declaration.
I have a question. It seems pretty simple to me to do an asphalt overlay over what is there to prevent any leaching or up or down over the asphalt that's there that's cracked. I know when I got a driveway, that's what I have to do to maintain it.
Thank you for your comment, Commissioner French. If I'm understanding correctly, are you suggesting that any kind of surfacing work or maintenance of the existing paved area would be conducted without issue?
Well, again, being a homeowner with a big, huge driveway, when it starts cracking, you can only seal it so much. And then I did like an inch or two overlay with all the heavy equipment. I think it's reasonable to believe that it could be caused to crack more, and that would be, I mean, it's going to cost a few bucks, but that would be a way to remedy that potential future problem.
Yeah, our understanding is that maintenance of the existing paved area is feasible on the site. Any disturbance beneath the paved area is what we're avoiding due to the nature of the soils.
But it's cracked already. I've been there. It's already cracked, correct?
Yes, I understand what you're saying, but yeah, that's definitely an option.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, one more thing, and I asked it before, and he thought it was a business type decision, and it got brought up again, the possibility of electric grinding versus using the diesel generator, is that it just doesn't work as well, or it costs more, or what's the thought process there?
I haven't actually seen any run. I've just kind of seen it on the internet. I mean, I couldn't clearly answer that question, but we're always looking for an alternative. Obviously, there's electric trucks, right? So we don't see electric trucks everywhere. So, and in that sense, I don't see a bunch of electric grinders out there. But that would be a possibility, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Council, I have a question. Can you talk about the legal implications, whether we approve or deny, and versus like the long-term use of this particular parcel?
If the question is as to whether you approve or deny, are you asking that if you were to recommend approval to the board, and if it were approved, what the long-term consequences would be?
Correct. And if it were denied at the board level as well, like it feels to me like this parcel has a lot more history in this community, and it's more complicated than just this single decision potentially. And I wondered if there was a way to speak to that.
Sure. If ultimately the rezone and the project permit were denied, then nothing would change. If it were approved, then there would be a rezone, and the SP overlay would be removed, and the permit would be approved. That would all run with the land, and it would go until such time as either one of the conditions were violated to necessitate a revocation of that permit, or there's another application and approval of another rezone for a different reason. But whatever this approval would be that's before this commission that would ultimately go before the board, if it were approved, that would run with the land indefinitely until circumstances changed.
Has there been any movement or neighborhood request or consideration of rezoning this particular parcel?
To my knowledge, nothing official. I'm sure there's been discussions or talk or thoughts about that. I don't think I've seen an organized proposal. Trying to remember if there were any official comments regarding that when we went through the mine process. None come to mind immediately. I think some of the comments were regarding a more traditional industrial type park during the mine process. But kind of a formal rezoning, comprehensive type plan, I'm not aware of one.
What would that process look like? Is that something that would be part of an overall general plan, or is there a process where particular parcels can be rethought in the meantime?
Yeah, it can be either. It could be a part of a larger effort. It can be site-specific to this site or additional sites in the area. Typically in this county, we don't try to rezone, or the past practice through board direction is to not rezone without property owner consent. There's usually, the property owner has some level of rights with the property. You get into potential takings issues, et cetera. So it can become complicated if it's not initiated by the property owner. If a property owner of this property or surrounding properties or any others were to come forward, we have an application process that we would analyze the proposal in terms of the existing zoning versus the proposed zoning, and do environmental analysis, bring it through your planning commission for a recommendation to the board, would be the process.
Thank you. I'm curious as to what applicant's Plan B would be. Obviously, it's always a possibility that things are denied once it hits either here or supervisor level. Is there another site that you looked at, but it was Plan B for some reason?
Well, Plan B, we would be obviously probably just staying at East Bennett. We have purchased a property, obviously we want to invest in it and make it work, right? So I probably can't answer that right this second, but we could definitely respond to you guys rather quickly.
Can I ask a question on that? Are you churning up more than 200 tons over at East Bennett?
No, currently no.
Could you?
Not without a solid waste permit amendment, and there's no way that site could do more than 200 tons per day.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
So we talked earlier that if you had a carbonizer and an air burner, then you would be able to do the same thing that you're proposing to do, but it would be quiet? Is that true?
Yes, that is correct.
And what's involved in, what's the speed bump on that?
It's the challenge is that there's air quality thresholds of significance, which is also relevant in CEQA, just like noise is. And when we do the emission modeling for that air curtain incinerator, based on the amount of vegetation that they'd propose to burn, it would be a significant environmental impact in regard to that air pollution.
From the carbonizer?
From the air curtain incinerator, Commissioner.
Hi, I'm Susie Tarnay. I'm with the Northern Sierra Air Quality Management District. So I've been working on this project with David. Just if you had questions, I just wanted to be here.
Well, apparently we have questions, so.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, when you look at that, it's like, okay, the emissions are going to be too much. Is there not like, accessory filter that can be added that takes care of that? Like, at what point did this sort of thought process break down for this project?
So we worked closely with them with the process with the air curtain incinerator. We went as far as suggesting certain mitigation measures, one of which was just the purple air monitors to monitor the particulate air quality. And the other one was, let's see. Oh, and the other part was that the air curtain incinerator was going to run only in the winter. So we are in non-attainment for ozone, which is a summer issue. So any emissions produced during the air curtain incinerator would not actually affect an ozone concentration. Does that make sense?
Can you say it in plainer language?
Oh.
What months could it operate?
Sorry. Can I say it plainer? So the air curtain incinerator puts out VOCs and NOx. That's volatile organic carbons and nitrogen oxides. Those are the two things that combine together with sunlight and heat to make ozone. Ozone is the pollutant that we as a district here in this area are in non-attainment under the national standard. Does that help?
That's a good start.
Okay.
So then this thing creates it, and so therefore they couldn't use it in the summertime because that's when it's a problem? So they would have this piece of equipment, but it could only be used in December? Is that what you just said?
Yes, so we had talked with them, and they had been amenable to only using it 6 months of the year during the non-summer season. So we thought that was helpful. Unfortunately, what happens is that with our thresholds of significance, it's a written document, and the emissions still exceed that for 2 pollutants if you use the air curtain incinerator. So that is then deemed a significant impact. We felt like with the mitigation measures, it wouldn't be as impactful. We could keep track of the particulate matter. We could keep the ozone production down. The county felt that they would have to put a strict limit on the amount of hours that it could run, to the point where they wouldn't be able to run it past the startup and shut down period. Does that make sense? Starting up and shutting down the air curtain incinerator releases the most pollutants.
So it's not as groovy as we think it might be.
So, I mean, it's not without actual impacts. There's never really easy answers, but it is a good option, but it does still create air pollution. We are willing to work with them. This is something that would then require a permit from us. If we could not work with the applicant to make sure that they were within their permit boundaries, we would not be able to issue the permit the next year.
So we would eliminate the noise, but then we would have air quality issues. That's what you're saying with this other piece of equipment.
Somewhat. On paper, for sure, yes. In practice, maybe not as much.
Not as much because it's still noisy, or not as much because maybe it's not as...
Yes. This is
Can
my
I jump
boss.
in as
This
well?
is the air
That'd be great, yeah.
pollution control officer.
Stand here. So Julie Hunter, Northern Sierra Air Quality Management District Executive Director. One of the things is that air curtain incinerators and carbonizers are newer technology. So as an air district, we're still trying to figure out how to best permit these throughout the state of California. We do have a carbonizer that's permitted that operates in Nevada County. It was permitted last year. We have a couple ACIs that are permitted. Those are a little bit more difficult to deal with, but I really like the carbonizer. I like how it works. I like the burn bot, but it's new technology. So we're all trying to figure out how to permit it. We're all trying to figure out what it looks like on paper versus what it looks like out in the field. And what we could do is start an authority to construct permit and see what happens when they do go through their operation schedule or their operations, and then if they have room to add more wood to the air curtain incinerator or the carbonizer, that's something that we would determine at the end of the year based on their emissions throughput. So that would be how much wood did they put through these devices.
So do you have any of that information based on the one that was approved last year?
I would have to dig into the emissions that we gathered from that, and I could do that. Mm-hmm.
So I looked up, sorry to interrupt, a carbonizer online, and I've been waiting to, and
That's
it kind
so
of,
cheating.
it kind of, it talks about high heat, low emissions, low oxygen, so I'm not seeing any negatives to it. Carbon,
So we
minimal
had
carbons.
to actually delve into the emissions estimation models. And that's where the pollutant estimations are coming from. When you have an air curtain incinerator, you have a curtain of air over the top, and that prevents the smoke from coming out. So that's why it's cleaner than an open burn pile.
So a carbonizer is an incinerator?
They both, I'm sorry, I refer to them as the same thing. The carbonizer and the air curtain incinerator, they operate similarly in that they're not emitting a smoke plume constantly because it does have that curtain of air blowing across that keeps the emissions in. The problem comes when you put in more fuel, you're breaking that curtain each time. So you get a little puff. And you're sort of, it's not like you just load it once in the morning and let it go. So this is where your emissions come from. It is much cleaner than an open burn pile. It's much cleaner than a wildfire. We as the air district are trying to find ways to allow these to move forward in the district.
So is there like a puff container that you can put over the top of it?
Not yet.
It could come, yeah.
Was there more? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that was,
So that's
I
the
just
general
heard your
idea.
question.
We need a puff container in order to make this the kind of technology that what we're actually looking for.
And keep in mind, it's the size of a shipping container. And so a puff container meaning over the top of an entire shipping container.
Yeah, it's like a garage or something.
I don't know if you could operate them inside a building. They're designed currently to operate outside.
Like an RV cover,
That works. Yeah, could be your ticket.
right? I'm inventing this. None of y'all steal my idea. Okay, do we have any other questions on this?
Not on the air. I'm done with the air.
Okay. All right.
I'm trying to understand the Venn diagram here, okay? So help me out, Theo. Over at the Brunswick site currently, people are coming to work and parking there. And most of them are getting in these various trucks that have chippers and all and lifts and all. Okay, that's one circle. And then over at the other circle is this grinding operation. Okay, so tell me what is the Venn of those two, because you're wanting to consolidate the two, but the issue I have is it almost seems as if the chipping operation stands separate from the cars and trucks.
Thank you for your question, Commissioner McAteer. As the operators had mentioned earlier, the constraints of the existing site over on Bennett are tight. And the nature of, I guess, the Venn to what you're speaking is that the off-site work that's conducted by Mountain Enterprises brings back green waste. And being able to deliver that efficiently to a grinding location to create biomass is the ideal scenario. They own the property at Brunswick. So the Venn being the middle is the efficiency and, from what I gather, the operational safety of having both located on the same site is ideal.
This lovely lady's going to add some more.
Well, and currently the Bennett yard is not paved. And so during the winter, it makes operations very difficult maintaining those roads. The turning is extremely tight. It is not what you would want long-term. That's why they bought a property. And they thought it would be a great property, being that it has been a lumber mill, it has been a gold mine, it's been a lumber mill for over 50 years. The county used it for the last 5 years for this exact same operations. And we would be doing it on the already existing asphalt, which would allow for way better driving, producing no track out, it would be extremely safe because we would have much more room instead of trying to operate in this tiny little yard. And we do have solid waste permit. We are inspected. We maintain our pile heights. They maintain all of the stuff that's in that permit. So it's a known condition. We're just asking to move it 1 mile down the road.
Got it.
I have a question about the current operations. That property, does it have residential parcels in proximity to the grinding operations, like it's similar proximities to the proposed site?
So I can answer. I went there. Okay, so it's between Centennial, okay, which means that it's between Centennial and Bennett, and I don't know of a residential structure within a few hundred yards. Is that a fair statement, David?
Yes, Commissioner McAteer, that's correct. There's less residences immediately nearby the East Bennett site.
Sorry.
I have a quick question about the SP overlay. So there's some questions about why remove that at all. My understanding is that as it's outlined, if somebody were to come in and meet all of the conditions of the SP overlay, it would result in a much more intensive development of this site with greater noise implications, et cetera, traffic implications, et cetera. Is that accurate to state?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely accurate. There were a lot of different components of that business park, including some, even some unknowns regarding auto repair. I don't remember the square footage, but I think it was 80,000 to 100,000 square feet of structures, in addition to outdoor uses and kind of everything that's listed in our industrial zoning district as a potential and proposed use on the site. So not being here in 1994, I don't recall the details, but reading through it, it was much more significant in terms of numerous land uses, numerous structures, and some just kind of open potential for other types of operations that even hadn't really been fully studied or proposed.
And so leaving that on as an overlay on this property would render this property virtually undevelopable.
Yeah, I would say that's correct and true.
Okay, thank you.
Following up on that, I don't remember discussing arsenic being under the asphalt cap when we talked about the last potential development on here, but we're talking about it today as if it makes this site unusable.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I've probably purged some of that information from that EIR out of my head to make room for other things. So I don't remember the details, but I do remember it was not as of a significant issue at the time. We had more concerns on the Centennial site with that project, and that this site had minimal, if any, concerns regarding site disturbance. Potentially the tank issue is kind of the only issue that I remember coming up, and not a concern that the entire layer of dirt is contaminated, but I don't have that documented information in front of me.
So where is that coming from? Like, did you guys do a phase one that was new, and this is new information that the soil is contaminated?
My understanding is that this is a phase one that was carried over from the Rise Gold project. It was tiered off the environmental findings at that time.
So it was there, we just didn't talk about it as much.
That's my understanding based on that.
And so if we had dug foundations or whatever, actually DTSC would have been really heavily involved in that project.
Had there been substantial ground disturbance in that area, likely, yeah. That's my understanding.
Interesting. Well, gang?
Well, it's in my district, so I'll begin the conversation, okay? So I want to make, I mean, I think we all are here to figure out how we're going to do grinding in Nevada County. That's the first thing. We're all in agreement there needs to be a facility for us because we're totally overgrown. And we want to make this property legal because they've been not operating within the boundaries. And so I feel like that I don't really see that tight Venn between two. I feel like your Venn is separated. And I know that's, sorry, it's an old teacher in me. And so I believe that the current use of this property for parking and maintenance, trucks and all the things, I think that that's a good use at this point. But I also feel that we've got this other thing hanging out there, which are these incinerators and an electric grinder that I think at some point potentially could be incorporated in this. So I feel like we're trying to shove this down the path without a very good plan as to what this is going to look like in the future. So currently, you have no concerns there's hardly any complaints or anything over at your other site, and you currently have no concerns at the current site, essentially, outside of the fact that you haven't been playing within the rules. And so I'm in the belief right now to be able to say, in the future, if you want to come back to me as District 3 representative and say, look, we've moved these generators and we've now turned them into electric, and we now are putting in an electric grinder, I'm much more open to that. So at this point, I can offer that I would be willing to have a negative declaration on this, but with trying to make this property legal without allowing a grinding operation. So if that made any sense, that's where I'm sitting right now.
So do you feel like that would require the lifting of the SP? I would rather see the whole project come back at once rather than piecemeal. But
well,
I don't know. Are they allowed
to
put trucks over there without changing the zoning? Like, The way that it's being used today, can it be used that way under the current zoning?
Yeah, staff would still recommend removal of that SP for any type of approved permit. Again, that is a project-specific designation for a 32-year-old project that never came about. So anything to permit on this site, we would recommend removal of that SP zone or SP overlay. Combined
Even
use.
for its current use?
Correct. Because technically the current use doesn't match with the master plan that was approved in '94. So it would be a conflict with the existing zoning to approve the development permit.
But there's an option for a gold mine to reclaim this piece of property, correct?
Outside the land use process, that's real estate transactions that I'm not privy to. But if a gold mine were to come back, they would have to go through the permitting process as we've.
Whether there's an SP overlay on it or not?
Yeah, correct. Any type of development on the site would require some level of development permit or use permit. The mine project proposed to remove the SP as well for the same reason, because the SP envisioned a project from 1994 that never came to fruition. We have a few properties throughout the county the zoning is tied to dead projects. And so any future development on those sites will require zone changes to remove. It's just a formula of how the process works. You approve the project, the zoning goes along with it. And if the project never materializes, the zoning doesn't change.
Right, no, I understand that. I was just seeing it as a bulwark.
Yeah, Commissioner, before I know we've approved projects with the caveat that they include additional conditions like you're talking about, rather than kicking it to the curb, having them agree to comply with certain other conditions that weren't really in the report. Big one for me is the asphalt. I can see that turning to mud this winter in no time with all those trucks out there. I know that wasn't really brought up, but to me, I think that could be a real problem. So that's something I'd like to consider adding to the recommendation, along with yours.
So you're recommending, from what I understand, Commissioner McAteer, you're saying that that you would not be in favor of the grinding operation on this site, that you would keep it at the other site.
That's what I'm saying, but I'm leaving the availability for them to now come back at a future date with the electrification, whatever it might be, the incineration, because we need it, and I understand, what this does is this helps satisfy the neighbors and noise, and it keeps the grinding operation going, and the two vends don't really meet much. I mean, I just don't see that you have to have the grinder over by your parking lot and all. I feel like there's two separate operations, and the downside of this is this gentleman has to continue to pay rent at this other facility.
Well, it sounds like his business has also outgrown that facility. So I guess my suggestion would be, I don't disagree that we're in a situation that we need to find balance here between supporting private property rights and the general plan and proper zoning, which all is in alignment with this project, while also taking into account the neighborhood concerns and the impacts. And since we as a planning commission are not actually approving anything, we're making a recommendation to the board, I would be supportive of recommending as county has written here, with the caveat, as Commissioner French said, of recommending to the board to take in extra mitigation measures, whether it's the electrical hookup, which the applicant has already said that would be, they would approve of that as a condition of approval. potentially looking at a sound barrier fence, and these other methods of waste removal. But at the end of the day, it's really the board's decision. I don't want to stop momentum for the applicant necessarily. I think there's a way to find balance in this situation without affecting their business, and while also taking into the account of the neighborhood and trying to find a balance and a mitigating factor between the two that might go beyond what the county has suggested so far.
Can you put the recommendations up so we can see the different pieces? So there's 3 different pieces that we're looking at, or this is all one?
3 different motions.
3, sorry.
And so, Commissioner McIntyre, you're looking at moving ahead with which ones?
Well, I had, it's all based on the fact of number 2, really. I can go along with 1 if 2 is amended to be able to not allow the grinding at this point until there's some benchmark.
I believe that would be the third.
Yeah, 2 is to remove the overlay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, then I'm referring to 3 then.
And so, under 2, then, would you have the asphalt overlay?
No, I think they were talking about the overlay of not the asphalt portion, but they were talking about the industrial park or the business
Right.
park.
But if you say, okay, the way that you're using it currently with trucks and vehicles is that you can have your trucks and vehicles
We're
over
making
there.
them legal.
But at the same time, we're worried about the arsenic getting out from underneath. It seems like you would want to do the asphalt overlay as part of the current operations, the way it's currently being used.
I didn't even bring up the asphalt portion. Number
Yeah,
1.
no, I'm bringing it up, and-
So number 1 says, let's declare it a negative deck. Number 2 says, let's take that business park or whatever it is, industrial park overlay off it. And number 3 says, let's allow them to do the grinding, et cetera, on the property.
Got it. And
Okay.
that's where all of.
So as I'm saying, I'm fine with 1 and 2. My concern is number 3 is that there needs, I just am not in favor of this grinding operation at this current moment, knowing that there's other alternatives and knowing that we can electrify things. And so I'm saying, come back, go forth, but we're making you legal, because currently you're not legal. We're making you legal, but you're going to have to come back to either us or the Board of Supervisors with some alterations.
But that could be a part of the conditions of approval that the board decides on and that the county imposes on the applicant.
I understand that, but I'm saying that I just don't want to punt it to the Board of Supervisors. I want to tell the Board of Supervisors what our concerns were that you put these parameters in there.
Sure.
So for staff, so is there a way, I think John and I are thinking the same, rather than having them start over, is there a way to approve recommendation number 3 with additional conditions?
I don't see that as starting over. I see that as they've made progress up to there, and then there's some big changes that would need to happen to their
Oh, yeah.
project that we would want to take a look at before it went on to supervisors. Like, I think I would be a little bit uncomfortable trying to design their project for them as conditions without seeing that piece of it again.
Okay.
I agree with you. I mean, I think that's.
I think, to Commissioners, just real quick, if there were some fairly minor extra conditions, I would say like a paving of the site, that would be something we could easily include with our recommendation to the board. If you were looking to, make those recommendations and we were looking at maybe even adding a sound wall or something, those are fairly tangible and straightforward that we could incorporate into a recommendation. If the desire is, well, let's figure out the electrification and maybe a combination of not using some generators and maybe not the wood grinder, the non-electrified wood grinder. Those get a little more complicated. They get a little more concerning with our environmental support documentation as well as site plan layout. So in that situation, if it goes beyond a fairly tangible pave it, add a fence, we would probably, staff would recommend either continuing the project for the applicant to work on those types of issues to bring back to your board to make a full recommendation, and or recommending only approval of certain components of the project, such as this vehicle storage area and not the wood grinding component, to the board with the concerns that have been raised, leaving open, as with any applicant, the option for them to get that component approved, come back at another time with an amended application for, potential improvements to the concerns we've heard regarding the noise.
Well, do you want to start with?
Commissioners, if I
Sorry, somebody
If
said
I may,
Sure.
I just
Sure
want to
thing.
provide, our thoughts on this, which, to staff's point about the nature of modifications of the environmental document. If we were to make substantial project changes, then the consistency of the mitigated negative declaration could be jeopardized with what is proposed for these changes. For example, the electrification, which we're certainly open to, we need to look a little closer at how that would play out functionally, but we're very open to that. Other measures, including the grinding being kept in a separate location, not only would we see these potential concerns with an inconsistency with the mitigated negative declaration, but additionally, the information that was provided by qualified technical consultants found that all of the operations proposed on the site are consistent and within the parameters of the general plan. So we don't see the need or have findings to make that substantial change. As staff had mentioned earlier in the response to public comment, if there was substantial evidence provided to motivate that change, that is something that we could be willing to accept and make a modification on. But at this point, we don't see how much further that would mitigate the impacts based on the studies that have already been conducted.
So to continue with staff, I'm really trying to work with this. So would there be a way to, in the declaration, approve it with the condition that within 6 months or some time period, they have determined the feasibility of using the electrical grinder? And any other things we might want to add, or do we need to do it today or not do it?
I think I'm like fairly opposed to requiring that they use an electric grinder. That's like a pretty major cost for a company to incur where they've already got existing equipment. I have some feelings personally about requiring new, more efficient equipment and taking existing equipment offline, and where the carbon footprint of that decision actually falls in, whether it's a positive or not negative. So I don't know that that's something that I personally feel I would want to support. I think the idea of bringing easy connection to the electrical grid to take some diesel generators offline feels like an easy requirement, because we tend to not approve generators as an electrical use for permanent operations in my experience working with the county. So that feels consistent with past decisions and project approvals. I wonder if somebody with more knowledge than me could speak to the efficacy of paving, repaving the asphalt, and whether that would be an effective strategy for further, I'm looking at you, Amy, for further encapsulating the contaminated ground soils.
Sure, thank you, Commissioner. normally what we would do in that case, if there was any alteration or serious cracks, degradation of the asphalt, we'd reach out to DTSC, because we work closely with them, and say, look, this is what's going to happen. They're going to put in a mitigating layer that will seal everything off, and I don't really see DTSC being in opposition of that, but we would defer to them for their approval of such, so.
Great, thank you. So I could see that being a requirement but I think either we're approving it with some minor modifications or we're rejecting it. But I think asking them to re-envision their entire operation feels like not our role. And,
I agree
yeah.
with the electric thing. That
Yeah.
was more his, but
That's
yeah.
just that's my take on it.
And, yeah, for the record, when I meant electrical, I was referring to a PG&E hookup for the generators and stuff like that.
I thought so, yeah.
Yeah, I agree, trying to formulate someone's business plan on kind of hypothetical models isn't our job.
I couldn't agree more, but I don't want to tell them they have to go to this or this. What I want to say is, you're approved, we're putting you legal, we're going to allow you to use it as a parking lot and as for all your equipment and everything else, but I'm going to be moving, and I can see I'm not going to win the whole grinding operation at this point. So,
Yeah, I also have a question about putting in noise, sound attenuation measures when the noise study shows that they would be in compliance. And I personally have worked with Saxelby before, and they don't always come with the news that you want. I have had projects fail their standards where we have had to put in sound attenuation. So as somebody who's worked with them, I have a tendency to believe their reports, that their reports are as accurate as they have the capacity to create. So in holding this operation to a different standard than what the county maintains as their requirements feels a little arbitrary.
I understand that,
Yeah.
and I'm going to say that, in my view, these people have been put through hell over the past 5 years. And so I'm trying to raise the bar to be able to say, you know what, you stopped a mine, and now you're faced with another problem, and this isn't the norm. So I'm saying that, you know what, let's raise the bar for this community that has gone through hell. And so that's my view on it.
And I appreciate that, and I do think that there are measures that are.
Okay, no, we've
There are
talked about
measures-
this. We've
there are-
talked about this. If you guys can't stay quiet, you guys have to leave.
And I think that there is a tendency, I definitely empathize with the neighbors. I have been on the other side of this dais, speaking to projects in my own backyard that I didn't support. And I do empathize with that, the anticipation of things changing and my life being made more difficult or unpleasant. But I do also think that we have regulations and guidelines that everybody is supposed to follow, and that is supposed to be applied uniformly across applications. And I also think that there are tools in place when companies and businesses and residents do not comply with the approvals that they've been granted, such as noise, where any neighbor is welcome to file a code case should their operation exceed the standards that the county set forth or that are included in an approval. And I think that I would deeply encourage people to do that, because that is the tool that we have at our disposal to hold accountability to compliance.
I think it's clear that Mountain Enterprises is going to have to operate at an extremely high standard at this site. If approved, you're going to have a lot of watchful eyes, and I'm sure it won't be afraid to make a call if there's something that is not in compliance.
So I'll move that after review and consideration, recommend to the Board of Supervisors adopt the proposed mitigated negative declaration and mitigated monitoring and reporting program, including as attachment 2 pursuant to section 15074 and 15097 of the California Environmental Quality Act and make findings A through C.
I second.
Your vote, Commissioner French?
Aye.
Commissioner Foley?
Aye.
Commissioner McAteer?
Aye.
Commissioner Garst?
Aye.
And Chair Millman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Then I'll move that after reviewing and considering the proposed zoning map amendment, RZN 26-0002, recommend the Board of Supervisors approve the zoning map amendment subject to the conditions of approval shown in Attachment 1 as modified by the August 26, 2026 memo to remove the SP overlay of the zoning district map, making findings A through C pursuant to Section 12.05.090 of the Nevada County Code.
I second.
Your vote, Commissioner French?
Aye.
Commissioner Foley?
Aye.
Commissioner McAteer?
Aye.
Commissioner Garst?
Aye.
And Chair Millman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I move that we, after reviewing and consideration the proposed project, recommend the Board of Supervisors approve the development permit, DVP 25-1, subject to the conditions and approval shown in Attachment 1 as modified by the August 26, 2026 memo for a vehicle storage facility at 12503, 12625, and 12791 Brunswick Road, making findings A through L pursuant to Section 1205-052 of the Nevada County Code.
I have a question about that motion. Can we make a motion to
That would change the findings, essentially.
yeah, to approve something that the applicant is not specifically applying? I don't know. Would the applicant be open to that as like as a measure? We're for just vehicle storage?
At this point, no, we were seeking a recommendation based on the approved measure.
Right.
Or
So,
measure to
so
recommend
I
approval.
think,
Well, I'd like to hear from Brian.
sure.
So then I'll defer to council, but in my opinion, that because it is a component of the project, we have vehicle storage and wood processing, you have made or are making a recommendation to approve a proposed component of the project, but not another, that would be within your commission's purview because it has been analyzed, proposed, and studied. It's just be like if someone proposed 10 lots and you recommended approval of only 8 lots. But I'll defer to council if they have a different opinion.
I concur with Director Foss. You can make a recommendation for approval with modifications, one of such being that X, Y, or Z be eliminated from the approval of the permit. So if you wanted to make the recommendation that you approve the permit sans the grinding operation, you could do so as part of the recommendation. You would just want to make that motion to be as specific as possible as to what that recommendation is to those pieces, because it sounds like there's, the grinder and then there's the generators, et cetera, that go along with it. So I think you just want to make that recommendation as clear to the board as possible so that they could get your intent as to the recommendation.
Would we modify the findings that we are referring to in such a motion? Some of them may not apply to vehicle storage.
So the findings, I think you would probably recommend that the findings be revised to remove any reference to the wood grinding component.
Agreed.
So the findings are basically that the site is adequate in size and shape, that facilities are compatible, et cetera. I think your motion for a portion of the project, the same findings can be used with the removal of any reference to the wood grinding, and that could just be part of your direction and motion.
Okay. Well, I'll just say what Brian said would be fine.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Your vote, Commissioner French?
Well, are we going to add the part about the asphalt?
Not at this point. If that gets your vote on this, Steve, then I'll add the asphalt.
Okay, so at this point, you're just removing the grinding operation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I do feel strongly that we need that. I've been out there, and I think it'll get destroyed. And
Okay, so I'll amend it to have some type of asphalt overlay for the subject property.
I'm still struggling.
Your vote, Commissioner French?
We need a second
I
for the full
apologize.
motion.
I seconded. Am I allowed to second from the chair position? Sure.
You are, but the motion was amended.
Oh, I'll
with the
second the amendment as well.
Commissioner French?
Can I abstain?
Yes, you may. Commissioner
I
Foley?
abstain.
No.
Commissioner McAteer?
Aye.
Commissioner Garst?
Yes.
And Chair Millman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that felt like work. That concludes the public hearing on this particular item, and thank you to everybody for spending your afternoon with us to come to a decision. I think that our next upcoming Planning Commission meeting is at the 17th of September?
Correct. We're planning on 2 items at that meeting. Expansion of the Highway 49 mini storage project, as well as basically expansion of the mini storage project for the U-Haul down in Penn Valley on Cattle Drive near Highway 20.
People have lots of stuff, huh?
Yeah, getting
Okay.
more apparently.
Okay, well, I'm sorry I won't be able to join you for that one. Are there any other announcements or anything before everybody around me talks? Okay, we're
No.
going to end this meeting. I think we're all done.
Thank you.
What people should not bring to the river is alcohol, a barbecue, anything that has an open flame, any type of glass containers. That glass container that you're carrying could very easily shatter on the rocks and it becomes a hazard for not only you, but other people at the river.
If you're coming to the river, that's wonderful, enjoy it, it's an incredibly magical place, but take all of the trash that you brought with you, everything that you brought, bring that back out with you. Odds are you're gonna see some